J Squad.
We gotta find.
Yo, what is going on today, everybody? Whew, man, I feel like it's been a busy day, but it hasn't been a busy day. We had a little, Christmas parade to go to with the kids. So we did that. And I've been looking over, seeing what we're going to watch today. Obviously, some interesting stuff happens, as it always does. And I found some stuff to watch that's like outside the preview. I found some Comicsgate tent to watch, Comicsgate content, I guess, to watch. And yeah, I see that. I almost didn't unmute actually. Kamoji, we're gonna have to fire you if this keeps happening. Uh, uh, but we got a few things to watch here. I'm gonna read the Insider Gamers article on Clair Obscur losing one of their awards, the Indy Game Award, or two awards actually is what they lost. And that's going to be interesting. Let me get the game pulled up here. Let me get my little wiggler on screen. Ooh, excuse me. Where are we? We're going to be playing this. Dude, that game you sent in Discord, Kamoji, that like hit nostalgia for me. I played the Nintendo, I guess it was Nintendo that made that game on like the Game Boy Advanced, I want to say. And I played that game forever, for all the time. I loved that game. I don't remember what it was called back then. Advanced Wars, yes, Advanced Wars. The one you sent me wasn't called Advanced Wars, right? It's not the same game. But man, I played a lot of Advanced Wars in the back of the car while we were going somewhere. Boom, boom, boom. Let's get over here. I think I need to make my chat a little bigger, like y'all's lettering a little bigger. Let's do that too while my game is pulling up. Yeah, it's inspired by Warside. That's the name of it. That's definitely going to be one that I'm going to play on the channel. I'm going to go back through some of the other ones that y'all have shown too, and then I'm just looking for it. Advance Wars is a cursed franchise. Search up the date the first game was released. Really? Hold on. Let's take a look here. When was Advanced 2001. It's what? It says 2001. EU in 2003. September 10th, 2001. Yeah. God, that's crazy. Game Boy Advanced. One of my favorite. Intelligent systems, gameplay, battle system. Oh, we're gonna have to come back to that. Maybe something we pull up when we pull up when we play Warside. What's going on, Egad? How you doing today? We'll get into this. I mean, we're not going to be immediately playing because I want to go over this article. Boop. You can see how poor taste is to sell a war game after 9/11. That's true. Okay, I didn't even think of that. Oh man. They should have had Twin Towers in it actually fall. That'd have been something. Oh man. Do you remember where you were on 9/11? I remember where I was. Funny enough, I was going to physics class. It's a bad 9/11 joke. Oh, spended bunkers and another suit so that I can have 5 dudes. One actually resting. And I have cores. I can build a mech. We're gonna do that before I get started. I want to. Yeah, I have 1 core. Or didn't I build one? Hold on, I got 1 building. Uncommon components, uncommon components. Oh, I can't do anything until those are done. All right. So, Indie Games. Oh god, these little fucking ads. I need to get an ad blocker. Indie Game Awards disqualifies Claire Obscure Expedition 33 due to Gen AI usage. The Indie Game Awards took place on December 18th, and as many could assume, Claire Obscure 33 took home the awards for Game of the Year and Debut Game. However, things have changed, and the Indie Game Awards are making a big decision to strip Claire Obscure and developer Sandfall Interactive of their award over the use of Gen AI in the game. This is dumb. When they remastered the first time the war in Ukraine broke out and it delayed the game. Oh no. So they're just full of bad luck. Man, it's just they're meant to be like they're a what do we say? They're a herald of doom to come. The horse of war, war running out of the apocalypse. Advanced Wars is one of the one of the four horses of the apocalypse. That's funny. I laugh at myself. This to me is dumb. If this is the reason that they did it, I think there are other reasons you might say that they're not an indie game. Yeah, they're an indie company, but we've gone over the whole Nepo indie idea in it. But just because they have AI gen, right? If it was a fully AI generated game and it was Slop, one, it probably wouldn't have won. But maybe there would be more hope for it. Let's see here. In an announcement made on Saturday afternoon, 6-1 Indy, the creators of the show, said that its removal comes after the discovery after voting was done and the show was recorded. The Indie Game Awards have a hard stance on the use of Gen AI throughout the nomination process and during the ceremony itself. When it was submitted for consideration, representatives of Sandfall Interactive agreed that no Gen AI was used in the development of Claire Obscure 33. Oh, so I guess they lied about it. If Sandfall said they didn't use Gen AI and just said they used AI after, you can't really blame the award for removing them. Yeah, that line just kind of like changed my entire perspective. I was like, why are you disqualifying them? It's because they lied. It's not, yes, they have a hard stance on Gen AI, but they were specifically asked. In light of Sandfall Interactive confirming the use of Gen AI on the day of the Indie Game Awards premiere, this does disqualify Claire Obscure 33 from its nomination. 6-1 Indie ended by thanking the community for being patient and providing feedback on the situation. The organizational team behind the ceremony is a small crew with big ambitions. The Indie Game Awards can only grow with your help and support, they said. We already can't wait for the 2026 ceremony. With Claire Obscure disqualification, the award will now go to the runners-up. That means that the award for debut game goes to Sorry We're Closed. That one I don't know. I'd have to look at it. And then, I think I do know what Sorry I'm Closed is. Sorry We're Closed. Is that the game where you... Hold on. Now I gotta look it up. Oh no, that was completely off. So this was Sorry We're Closed.
I'm not the victim, I am the system. I'm not in the wrong with my infinite wisdom. Follow my words even if I contradict them. It's my house, Michelle, I'll be the one to evict them. Don't want another demon past the ones within my mind. And it's with that resolution that I'll kill you every time. Change is meaningless, when it gets too close I hit rewind. It's a cycle I'll endure and I will love it till I die. Back and forth, 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 back and forth.
So that's that. And then of course, Blueprints. We all know Blueprints. What do you think of Claire Obscure 33 being disqualified and having their awards stripped at the Indie Awards due to Gen AI? I mean, he's putting it in such a weird term. Like it's very clear up here why they did it, right? They may not have qualified to get into the Indy Awards, which I think there's an issue with that, right? And the way people perceive AI versus what the good companies are actually using it for. But they just flat out lied. They did use AI, so they got fucking booted. There was, let's see here. So I saw, of course, my favorite person on X say something. I'm trying to find it now. I should have had it up and ready because we can kind of talk more about. That was quicker than I wanted it to be. So we're going to talk more about these companies. Gen AI is still a heated topic regardless. Yeah, and it's probably going to be for a while, I think, until until like the dust settles, where they're showing that some companies can use AI ethically while others can't. Your favorite person, does it rhyme with Burns? No, it doesn't actually. Our bums. Bums? No, it doesn't really rhyme with bums. It rhymes with bash. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Annual. It's still. Oh, I wanted to show this too. We're gonna show this. Friend of the channel, Damage Sector, won Smash JT's award. Oh man, I should have jumped in there. That's funny. That would have been an interesting chat. What was the award? He whatever it was, he turned it down. He didn't say. It may have been a game or something like that. But it was funny. It was funny. If he comes into chat, we can ask him. I may not be able to find this. I can never find tweets because I can never remember the quote fully because I'm old. Oh yeah. Here it is. So here is Smash JT. Indie Game Awards disqualifies Claire Obscure Expedition 33 due to Gen AI usage. Well, yes and no. It was due to lying about using AI. And instead gives award to one of the Indie Game Awards show presenters, C. Bedford, co-founder of A La Mode Game Studio, behind Sorry We're Closed. Yikes. Should just not have done anything. What is his problem with this? Oh, it's pink and stuff like that. I mean, I hate when he does this because it's clear he didn't read it. Where is it at? Initially discovered through itch.io, Game Boy competition. The second update. Oh yeah. I mean, it says they have a hard stance on AI. In light of the Sandfall confirmed. Yeah, I mean, we just read this. They were disqualified for not saying it, for not admitting to it. I heard Blueprints also used AI. I'm not sure about that. I would almost bet that they did, though. But I wonder if they I'm not seeing anything immediately, but I have heard that rumor too. The title or something. Yeah, I have heard that rumor too, and it's very possible that they use it, especially for like concept art stuff and things like that. We had that conversation yesterday. Oh, spoiler alert. And it doesn't make sense. I thought he made a different comment about giving awards to their bigger companies, or maybe that was some shitter who said that. So yeah, the Gen AI, it just seems like I was actually going to defend Claire Obscure in this, but They made their own bed. What I would like to know is if Blueprints did use Gen AI, did they admit it to Indie Game Awards? That would be an interesting uh, prospect. Like, is it just no one is wanting to tell anyone about AI because it's a hot topic? Because I could definitely see that, but that's a greater problem in not disclosing, I think, how you make your games. And using that Gen AI and making good games. Kamoji should take a poo, present it, and say, "Here's my indie project. No AI used, and it would sell." But then again, he could probably generate AI poo and sell it, and people would buy it. It's just when you have companies that are flat out coming and saying what I've been saying forever, that they're not firing people, they're actually hiring more concept artists and more artists, but still using AI as a tool. It's just, that's where I think the industry is going to go. I think a lot of these AAA companies are going to shoot themselves in the foot because Gen AI is not going to produce the same quality of art that you're going to get out of the handcrafted art. I don't think it's anywhere near that yet. I don't know that it ever will be, right? I think it'll always look and feel soulless in some way. Now, it'll obviously trick some people. It obviously might trick a lot of people, but I just don't think, like, when I see AI, every time I see someone, using AI, this is a video game that I'm making, or this is this and this, it just doesn't look like there was a person behind it. Maybe that's just me coping, but we'll see. We'll see. So next up, kind of going through this lineup quickly. But then one of the last video we're gonna watch is about an hour, so I'll probably get a lot of content out of that. I saw this. I was gonna watch a different upper echelon video about, like, what is it called? Elon Musk's vehicle, the Tesla. About the Tesla crash rates and how bad they are. Our Tesla crash reports data and stuff like that. But then I saw this one. The Slop YouTubers are angry, and the reason is hilarious. And I took offense to this, being a sloppy YouTuber myself. So I had to figure out what was killing my channel. So we're gonna watch this one while I play some games. This will be the first video, and then we'll learn about a particular character in what I think is Comic Gate.
I hate YouTube gurus so much. This guy copied my video word for word and is selling a course. How are people like him real? Romero.
My name is Romero, and I accidentally became a YouTube automation guru. So what's the secret to succeed on YouTube?
Oh.
Yes, you can succeed on YouTube doing that. One video completely changed my life.
More guru stuff. That's what I
want to
figured it
start
would
with
be.
a definition, because YouTube slop is a very, very flexible term. For some people, any sort of opinion or commentary they simply don't agree with is slop. Others believe it has to do with minimal effort, like reactions. But for the sake of clarity right now, my definition is that AI-generated content, commonly referred to as automated faceless channels by the slop.
Yes, it's AI. It's topical with what we were already talking about today.
Gurus. That is the real sewage of YouTube. And yet with each passing day, much like real sewage, I guess,
Gotta fill
there's
up my
more
drink
and
real
more
quick.
and more of it. Except, hilariously, the slop tubers are now cannibalizing each other. And when I really sat down to think about it, that's actually the end stage conclusion of this whole AI content get-rich-quick scheme overall. Because the people who want to do it, and especially the people who are preying on them, don't actually know how to do anything else. By the way, I'm actually late to this topic by a mile this time, because the whole thing already made rounds and got covered by Moist Critical, among others. But the angle I want to focus on is not plagiarism, because I honestly don't care in the slightest that these people plagiarize from each other.
Yeah.
The angle I want to focus on is that they're a giant human centipede of content creation, where if the dollar hits the pavement, they'll eat each other. Let's take a look at the quintessential automation guru, as they say, to understand what the formula is. Meet.
I mean, this content has been like pervasive all over the place. I feel like if you're like, I don't run into it, obviously, like my algorithm is very much curtailed. What is going on, Blake? How have you been? I haven't seen you in forever. I feel like moist critical. That's right. We always got to call out the big dogs. Carl Faceless is this YouTube.
Carl Faceless. Carl is very vocal about how
I think it's very funny. I think it's very funny to hear that there are AI slop channel gurus. So AI is already, you know, a terrible slop that gets just millions of views. Half of the time, I think they're botted just to make money off of YouTube. But now you have people selling people on helping them make AI fucking channels and make a lot of money. It's just, you can't get any better than that.
how much money he makes. Something you can see plastered all across his channel with incredible thumbnails showcasing hundreds of thousands of dollars on the analytics dashboard, with titles like "These 3 new faceless YouTube niches are blowing up," or even more on the nose, "I made 300,000 views with one AI brain rot video. Copy this." According to Carl, YouTube isn't luck, it's science, and you can make all of the money, if you want to, with his faceless automation systems. It's a compelling argument, genuinely. People are desperate these days. Prices are tough, times are hard. Others are lazy, they want money for free with little effort, and the visual claims as well as the explicit claims that Carl makes in the videos are very appealing. Just one problem: if you look at the thumbnails, you'd think he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars with these channels. If you listen and actually watch those videos, you start seeing it's more like tens of thousands maybe. But then if you start digging just a little bit deeper, you find out he just keeps reusing the same income screenshots. That wouldn't necessarily matter, except he's reusing them as the proof all across his brand new insane niches type claims. Here's one from July. 3 brand new faceless YouTube niches making money in 2025 with proof, okay?
With
showcasing
proof.
about $7,000 total. But then here's another one from just 3 weeks ago. 5 new insane YouTube niches that are blowing up. Copy them. With the
Same
exact
thing.
Proof.
You use
You
that
can't
one
exactly make the
video
same
that
money
made you
twice
quite a
from
bit of
different
money.
topics several months apart, can you? Dissect the overall content, even partially, and you rapidly find that the entire thing is a
Where
house of
is...
mirrors.
Okay, there he is.
At one point, Carl certainly has made money on YouTube. He actually made quite a lot of it compared to the typical rock bottom average, but he certainly isn't making tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars every couple of weeks, at least not from faceless YouTube channels. See, on the side, even though it's not on the side.
It's a grift as old as time, right? Don't get rich off of the work. Get rich off of, quote unquote, teaching the people the work. I mean, when have you not seen it? I've been watching these kind of grifters all the time. I used to watch a lot of, what's his name? CoffeeZilla, and watch how he would go through this stuff and do things like that. And it's just crazy how much of it there is, how easy it is to find this content. You know, this is Jake Paul. This is, what's that other retard that just tied in his fight? Andrew Tate. This is, you know, it's always selling you a better life.
It's actually the main business model for these con men. Parallel to the barrage of, "I make tens of thousands per month on YouTube with AI channels," all those claims, he sells courses on school.com. Here's the page. And what you immediately see is that he has almost 600 members, each paying $50 per month. That's well over $25,000 every 4 weeks from students who believed the claims about going viral on YouTube and making a lot of money, because that's where the actual money is. YouTube gurus aren't successful because of their AI channels, even if they've done compared.
I'm going to teach you how to make thousands of dollars owning pigs. All right. All right. It's time for Daddy War to start making some money.
Well with some.
I'll sell you a better life for free. Here's the advice. Moderate your time on the internet. You can't tell them that. You can't tell them that, Egad. We're not going to make money off of them that way.
Those channels at times, they're successful because of their courses and the subsequent propensity for desperate people to fork over money, hoping that the course will actually change their life or do what they claim. That is the secret sauce, okay? That is the primary business model. Well, seeing as I hate that type of person, today is a very happy day because if I'm right about this, which I think I am, we've witnessed a firsthand example of exactly why and how the entire community of get-rich-quick AI slop tube gurus eventually devolves into pure chaos.
Yep.
Let's meet our next character, Romero. This guy's a pretty big step up from Carl. And if you look at his school.com classes, you'll see 1,600 members at $37 per month. That's $720,000 per year, just from classes. And believe it or not, that number has only gone down recently. Back in October, it was $2,200, which is over $80,000 per month. But with the title of king come the problems. In a rapidly viral social media post, Romero took to Twitter and proclaimed his hate for YouTube gurus, his anger that someone had copied him, and he put out a video showcasing that, yes, another channel had one-to-one ripped off his content. He actually deleted the post now, right as I was making this video, but I archived pretty much everything, so no matter. Let's have a guess at what type of...
Don't they all copy each other? I feel like it's the same... it's the same thing where you go with any of them. Like, nothing's original. A YouTube algorithm changes, this is just the same thing over and over and over again.
Channels stole his content, shall we? That's right. It was this guy who specifically does the exact same thing as Romero. This one's a little bit more isolated. He has his own website, so we don't get stats directly, but he's supposedly offering $4,000 worth of tutorial content for YouTube All-Stars for just one easy payment of $497. What a bargain.
Yes, the YouTube channel Bob Vids talked about this years ago. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a tale as old as time. They're just doing it with AI, right? It's not something revolutionary. This is just something that happens all the time, whether it's, be a man stuff, whether it's get in shape, whether it's, vitamins and everything else. There's always something, right? There's also foreigners who copy major streamers, just retranslated. Yeah, I've heard about that too. I mean, the only way, like, I don't even know how you would shut down just the pure amount of stuff like that that's coming in. It's the same thing with like the AI slop. It's so quick and easy to make. How do you stop it from happening, I guess?
But if history is any sort of guide, he probably stole that too. And he's not alone. Here's Danny Y, probably towards the end of the Guru Human Centipede on YouTube, who also copied the video. And this time he has 124 students at almost $100 per month. That's well over 6 figures a year, just from spamming about how much money you make. Whether or not it's true is entirely secondary, and then raking in revenue from desperate people. Awesome, guys. Well done. It is absolutely hilarious to me that a person like Romero is angry because people stole his content. And do you want to know why that is? Because Romero, with absolutely no hyperbole here whatsoever, Romero instructs people to quite literally find popular videos on YouTube, copy their script word for word, as in scrape the script out of the platform, paste it into ChatGPT, get it tweaked, and then post it on their own channel. He makes many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars from students, teaching them to steal other people's content that they spent a tremendous amount of hardworking time to make. And he does the very same thing when it comes to news articles as well.
So the first thing we're going to do is go on Google and search up Hawaii real estate market crashing. From here, we're going to click on news, and then we're going to see a bunch of articles. So what we're going to do is just copy the entire article, and we're going to paste it on a blank Google Doc. Once you do that, you want to click on File there at the top left, hover over Download, and download it as a PDF document. So once we do that, we can...
Yeah, it's called Slop here, but at least 8 years ago, people talked about clickbait thievery, which was essentially the same thing. Are you talking about when people would do actual clickbait, or are you talking about something different where they would steal other people's clickbait?
Just open another Google Doc, go to the second article. We want to get like 2 or 3. We're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to copy the entire thing. We're going to paste it on a blank Google Doc, File, Download, PDF.
That's nuts.
So cool, that's pretty much it. Now the next thing is giving all of this information that we just downloaded and giving it to a ChatGPT prompt. Now the script prompt that I use for Roof Report is going to be posted on my school community. So if you want that prompt, you can go ahead and click the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Listen, man, I'm already giving out a lot for free. All right, let me have something. Let me gatekeep something. So we're just going to copy the entire prompt. We're gonna go on ChatGPT, and then we're going to paste it with the 3 PDFs of the news article. So again, if you don't know, you just click the little download icon here at the top right of your Google profile, and then you'll see them here. Just click and drag onto the chat box. Literally, that's it. So cool, once that's done, we can just click enter, and there we go. ChatGPT is writing the entire script for us.
That's funny. And he complained
But I
about
still
being
review
AI
it.
slop.
It's a lot of research still, you know? I think my videos are so good, you can't even tell they're made with AI.
These people are a joke, but the best part about all of it is that they hate each other just as much as I hate them for doing it. After the first guy posted his content and it trickled down.
What used to happen is people would do review videos and get popular. So someone would copy their review videos word for word and utilize a similar thumbnail and get a bunch of views and subs. Yeah, I've seen that. I think that probably still happens today in a lot of cases. I mean, you can, if you find them, you can take them down, or I guess YouTube will let you know channels that may have copied you or using your work. But I think that's usually like straight video stuff.
Down the chain, resulting in a moist critical response eventually. These absolute... Okay, let me stop there. I don't have anything nice to say. These gurus, right? Gurus, all made responses. AI is not actually bad, yada yada. But this guy, Danny Y, goes on this monologue about how he's sorry and he'll take the video down. He apologizes profusely and he knows how it feels, as in it feels bad and he doesn't like it, because he made some sort of viral YouTube thumbnail template at some point and now everybody copies it from him. It's basically just him with this whole like get monetized turbo clickbait where he points at the dashboard with his finger with like a green number and it's just completely fake stats. Okay, like it's not just clickbait, it's a lie in the thumbnail. But wait a second, because do you remember Carl, little faceless Carl?
Hold on.
From the very beginning of the video. Yeah, Carl is one of the people who now steals that thumbnail. We've come full circle back around. They all hate each other for stealing ideas and content while they teach thousands and thousands of people, and get rich in the process, I might add, with an entire education course about how to fucking steal ideas and content. They don't like it when their own goddamn peers use the same industry tricks on them, but they're fine making $500,000 from desperate people while misleading them into believing that they can make unrealistic amounts on YouTube with like straight up lies in the thumbnails and directly advising them to go scrape scripts out of videos and steal the very same way that they steal from each other, which they hate and complain about. These people, oh my God. You can't get any lower in the YouTube barrel compared to these guys. It's one thing to draw inspiration. That is a real thing. It happens. People do it. I've done it. Everybody does it.
I moved out of the way in time.
Scraping the literal script out of videos and pasting it into ChatGPT so that you can shit out an AI clone is absolutely indefensible. In my opinion, they should be shamed by the entire audience. Their channels should be deleted, every single one of them, and their customers, students, I guess, should file credit card chargebacks. What you have is a YouTube human centipede situation. If you don't know what that is, do not look it up. It's horribly disgusting. But the PG version is that there's a chain of people eating each other's content and shitting out something worse, where the second and third and fourth people in the chain are turning to all the ones behind them and saying, actually, you guys, I'm in the proper position. What I do is fine. Except they all do the exact same thing. Ultimately, they're competing with each other as they make the entire platform worse for everyone. But there's a limited amount of space when you factor in the exponential replication of AI content. Original videos take time, they take effort, they take creativity above all things. But these people can just copy and paste, like Control-C, Control-V, which means
I mean, I would disagree. Like, you look at like Asmongold, one of the most popular guys that's out there. He gets on stream, he talks, he cuts it up into 100 VODs. He has a guy cut it up into 100 VODs, and he posts it online, like in real time, as he's on stream, the VOD will be coming up for a subject that he said that'll be that way. That's not like hard work, right? The video essayist guys complain all the time about, you know, reactionary channels and things like that make simple slop videos, as they would say. And like me, mine's not hard content. Not that I'm popular, right? I got my 116 of you beautiful people out there, and if there's anyone new who hasn't watched my comment, at least give this a like. It's absolutely free. It just takes one click. And if you really like the content here, give me a subscribe. But yeah, there are ways to make content that isn't all that difficult, right? It's really just it's just kind of the way of the world. Streaming is becoming a big thing, so that in itself is kind of well, streaming has been a big thing, but it seems like there's more and more streamers and less essay videoists, in my opinion.
Eventually, the sewage bubbles over into the street. These people eat each other when their own techniques are used against them. And as time goes on and they continue destroying the ecosystem, that problem is only going to get worse for them. Check this out. Perfect example. World War II, AI Slop. Here's some more. And more. And more. With a million other channels behind them just like it. Half the content here isn't even true. It's just completely fabricated. But these people don't care. They're doing what the guru told them to do. And the end result is that they make nothing. The guru...
Like, this channel is obviously not doing well. 500, 3.1K, 1.8K, 2.5K. This channel isn't racking in millions of dollars. You know, they may be putting in a bunch of videos a day, but we've seen that doesn't, you know, lead to more people, you know, watching your videos. There's plenty of examples of that.
Guru gets rich in the process and attacks all the other gurus because they're stealing from everyone, including each other. Actually, what do you even call it when the creators who steal content are stealing the content about how to steal the content from each other? It's like an Abbott and Costello sketch. Anyway, none of these people deserve sympathy. Literally no one should care if they plagiarize from each other, and the entire platform would be exponentially better off if they stopped existing. That's it. If you want to support actual human content, links down below. Special VPN deal, locals and Patreon, channel memberships, etc., etc. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.
All right. I like Upper Echelon. I've watched a lot of his contents over the years. I've had problems with some of his content around pirate software and something I think he got a little too heated about. But other than that, I think he does well enough videos. So this next one's going to be longer. So this will probably be the bulk of stream tonight. Most people, I think, know Gamer from Mars. He makes long essays about all sorts of stuff on the internet. This one in particular is about a cartoonist that destroyed the comic books industry. What's the guy's name? It doesn't say it in here. Yeah, it doesn't say it. It's just all of his products. No one ever puts a description in anymore, including me. But we're going to watch this, learn about this character, learn about Comicsgate. I was never in, like, I wasn't in the Comicsgate scene. I don't really watch a lot of comics. I don't really do a lot of, like, I don't even read or watch a lot of, I don't really read a lot of comics. So it was never really a thing for me. I knew it was around, I knew it was happening, but I didn't know anything about it. So let's learn from the man himself.
Here with online pop culture discourse, chances are you've at least heard of Gamergate. It was a conflict which arguably changed the way the internet discussed politics forever, and depending on who you asked, was either about ethics in gaming journalism or a harassment campaign against women in gaming. While many people remember Gamergate and its impact, fewer are aware of its admittedly smaller but still notable successor, Comicsgate. Many of the events have been either poorly documented or lost to time, but I have done my best to piece it all together. This is the insane story of the changing cultural landscape of comics, and the men who tried to create their own legacy by toppling what they thought to be an evil empire. But before we go any further in today's video, I want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, Ray.
Thank you. Bye, Raycon, everybody. Sponsor me, Raycon, even though I have no channel.
In order to fully understand why Comicsgate began in the first place, it's important to establish what the comic book industry looked like during the mid-2010s. It wasn't simply one event that caused an enormous amount of backlash, but rather a number of smaller occurrences that compiled over time. While it's debatable when exactly the first domino fell, most people will point to January 4th, 2011. This was the day that Axel Alonso was named the new editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, after his predecessor, Joe Quesada, stepped down following an 11-year tenure. Quesada's reign had been tumultuous, to say the least, as he led the publishing giant forward into massively successful new initiatives, while also overseeing some of the most controversial creative decisions in the company's history. One thing that Marvel had struggled with for years was that, outside of a plethora of supporting characters, the protagonists of their stories did not reflect the diversity seen in both the talent working on them or the people reading them. And this was a problem Alonso seemed determined to tackle. In an interview conducted shortly after his promotion, he stated, "It goes without saying that we're interested in having voices represented from across the spectrum. We certainly have more female writers than we've had in the past, but the key thing is these people need to emerge. We need to believe in them, and we need to be able to sell them. I finally got my Mexican superheroes a few years ago, and that felt good. But it has to come organically. It's not something you can force." The push for new culturally diverse characters began soon into his reign. Just a few months later, on September 14th...
That's really not that insane a statement. If you think about it, like, he's not saying that we need to force it in there, but he's saying we need to, encourage it? So, yeah, I could definitely see where the anti-woker like me at that side may see it and immediately think, diversity, and they're trying to push everything into it.
In 2011, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man #1 was published. This introduced the new character Miles Morales, a half-black, half-Latino teen, who would take on the mantle as the next web-slinging superhero following the death of the Ultimate Universe's Peter Parker. Miles was the creation of writer Brian Michael Bendis, who had been scripting the Ultimate Spider-Man series since the year 2000. For a bit of added context, the Ultimate line were set in an alternate universe outside of the mainline Marvel continuity, and were intended to be modernizations of the publisher's classic characters. To that end, Bendis claimed that the creation of Miles was an effort to reflect the vast diversity of both New York City and the readership of Spider-Man. Recently, a good friend of mine who is African American turned to me when I was nervous about the announcement of the new Spider-Man and said, "When I was a kid, they wouldn't let me be Superman or Batman, but they would let me be Spider-Man." Even though this was long before the birth of Comicsgate, there was of course some pushback to the latest iteration of the wall crawler. Conservative radio personality Glenn Beck went on the show to mock the new character, with a very odd conspiracy theory as to who may be responsible for the storyline.
The new Spider-Man is really quite great. He looks just like President Obama. It's fantastic. We now have a half-black, half-Hispanic gay Spider-Man? Okay.
It's unclear where exactly Beck got the idea that Miles was intended to be gay. When asked in interviews if the character would have any love interests, Bendis stated that since he was just 13 years of age, romance would not be a heavy focus on his story outside of the potential awkward crushes. And as Morales grew older in the years that followed, he has never been...
Was Morales, he may say it, but I feel like Morales was at least well received amongst people. I mean, the movies definitely did well. Again, I'm not in the comics industry, I'm not big into comics, so I wonder what the reaction to him
been shown to be anything other than heterosexual. Regardless of these criticisms, Miles received a generally favorable response from readers, with his debut issue actually outselling the mainline Amazing Spider-Man book during the month it was released. It should be
Oh.
noted that comic book issues which introduce new characters tend to see a spike in sales, and the
Oh, that's
numbers
fair.
dipped substantially in October once the initial hype had died down. Also, just to nip a potential criticism in the bud, I'm aware that these sales figures really only reflect the amount of copies of a book that retailers ordered and don't necessarily translate to how well they sold. Our next stop on our journey of comic book diversity happened on July 11th, 2012, when Carol Danvers made her debut as the new Captain Marvel in Avenging Spider-Man number 9, before the start of her own self-titled series a week later. Danvers had been a supporting character for prior versions of Captain Marvel since 1968, and had already been a superhero headlining her own book as Miss Marvel beginning in 1977. According to writer Kelly Sue DeConnick, it had been the intention of editors for Carol Danvers to take on the mantle of Captain Marvel for years, long before she began writing the character. Both because it seemed like a natural progression, but also because Marvel had been trying to publish a wider range of female-led superhero comics. To quote DeConnick, "As an industry, we have to make more female-led books that are actually worth buying. Never mind the Bechdel test, try this. If you can replace your female character with a sexy lamp and the story still basically works, maybe you need another draft. They have to be protagonists, not devices."
And that's
Kelly
another
Sue's first
that's another good statement. Like, we need good stories. We don't just need to make female characters.
issue of Captain Marvel hardly set the world on fire, coming in the 42nd place in the overall sales chart the month that it was released. That being said, Captain Marvel had never been an especially popular title, and over time the Carol Danvers iteration received a die-hard fan base that dubbed themselves the Carol Corps. While these two examples certainly set the groundwork for what would eventually become Comicsgate, they were isolated enough not to cause too much of a stir. Miles Morales existed in an alternate universe, and thus did not interfere with the continued adventures of Peter Parker in the main continuity. And Carol Danvers was just the latest in a long line of heroes to use the name Captain Marvel. She wasn't even the first woman to do so. It wasn't until 2014 that things really began to heat up and more people took notice of the increased push for diversity at Marvel Comics. The next part of this tale started in February of that year, when Miss Marvel number 1 introduced the world to Kamala Khan, the publisher's first ever Muslim superhero to headline their own title. While Miles and Carol had both been relatively popular new additions to the lore, Kamala was a smash hit. It didn't simply have to do with her cultural identity. The character was depicted as a die-hard fan of superheroes, particularly the latest iteration of Captain Marvel, and thus struck a chord with the newfound reader base that had been growing ever since the birth of the Carol Corps. The first issue of this new Miss Marvel series sold so astronomically well, in fact, that it went into 7 printings, something practically unheard of in this day and age. But of course, it didn't come without some criticism. Part of it came from the section of the audience that simply didn't enjoy seeing a Muslim character get such a spotlight. But there was another group who objected to the person bringing her to life. G. Willow Wilson, the writer of this new series and the creator of Kamala Khan, was herself a Muslim. However, she had not been born into the faith. Rather, she had been raised an atheist and didn't convert to Islam until adulthood. There were some woke readers who believed that a white woman with such a background shouldn't be writing about the experiences of a brown-skinned teenager, growing up with the strict expectations of Muslim parents.
Oh no! The wokies went after her.
Worth noting that this was a small minority, but it was a conversation that swirled around Marvel's newest superhero character regardless. Up until now, we've discussed members of the new generation of diverse characters that went over relatively well with comic reading audiences. Even people who weren't fans of these new characters could at least ignore them, since they didn't step on the toes of Marvel's already long-established costumed crime fighters. But then came a day unlike any other, when Earth's mightiest heroes started to fall and be replaced by a sea of new faces. It happened on October 1st, 2014, the publication date of 2 incredibly impactful comics, Captain America number 25 and Thor number 1. The former featured a story in which Steve Rogers, the original Cap, was rapidly aged to the point where he was no longer able to be an active superhero. The plot concluded with Sam Wilson, who for decades had fought by Steve's side under the alias of the Falcon, taking up his partner's mantle. I probably don't even need to specify why this sparked debate.
Yeah, this comes to the where the problem is, because this is the kind of the similar problem that we had with gaming on that side, is like replacing or pushing, changing. It's not pushing, it's changing established lore and titles to create this fake sense of diversity, where it seems like with the first three, Captain Marvel, Miles Morales and them, they wrote their own characters and built into it. I mean, Miss Captain Marvel's a different story, but when you have a title where you can replace the characters, it works out. I can see where this starts to be a problem for a lot of fans of the series.
Changing the race of an established character is one thing, but it was heavily symbolic and divisive for some to dress up a black man in the famous red, white, and blue uniform. That was the idea, of course, and there was just as much fanfare as there was dissent. Supporters applauded the fact that Captain America now represented a different part of the United States population. Ultimately, while this sparked a lot of outrage, most people were at the very least able to understand why it was made. Superhero mantles being passed down to new characters was hardly a new occurrence, and if Steve Rogers was going to step down from the role, it made logical sense that he'd hand it off to his loyal sidekick. The same cannot be said for the other change Marvel Comics made the same day, which quickly eclipsed the conversation. What needs to be understood is that in the pages of the Thor comics prior to October 1st, the titular character had recently gone through a story arc in which he was deemed no longer worthy of wielding his magic hammer. After that happened, the Thor series was then rebooted back to issue number 1, the ending of which saw an unidentified female character lifting the hammer and gaining the power and title of the God of Thunder. While her identity was kept a mystery at the beginning, she was later revealed to be Jane Foster, an old on-again, off-again love interest for Thor. This caused a massive rift online as comic fans began arguing about this monumentous change, mainly in regards to if it made sense within Marvel Comics lore. Those in favor claimed that this was perfectly in line with what writer Jason Aaron had been doing with the Thor series up until that point, exploring the themes of worthiness and godhood and what exactly they meant. On top of that, they made the point that Jane Foster was far from the first new character deemed worthy of lifting the hammer. But those against it countered by saying the problem didn't come from the fact that she wielded the weapon, but the name she was now.
This is like a huge change, to the franchise. It's I guess Thor being unworthy for it could be seen already as like bad taste, and then you add in that they just replaced it with the female character as being, we're just doing it to turn Thor into a female.
Using, as Jason Aaron flatly stated in the official press release, this is not She-Thor, this is not Lady Thor, this is not Thorita, this is Thor. This is the Thor of the Marvel Universe. There was a lot of debate about whether Thor was a title that could be passed down or simply the name of the character. Regardless, Marvel stuck to their guns and maintained that Jane Foster was indeed Thor, while the original now went by the name Odinson. And this could have been the beginning and end of this particular controversy. Up until this point,
I could see that being very decisive if I was a lore fan of the Marvel universe, right? Thor is the God of Thunder, what he's based off of, and now it's a title that can just be passed down. No, I don't think that works the same as, say, Captain America, where anyone could pick up that title. Doesn't like Punisher pick it up at one point, like a side comic or something like that? Yeah, definitely different.
really been discussing the conversations surrounding the introductions of these new characters since, for the most part, the actual content of the comics they appeared in wasn't anything too remarkable. But February of 2015 saw the release of Thor number 5, which contained a scene that really soured naysayers on the new iteration of the Norse deity. The sequence begins with Thor battling the villains Titania and the Absorbing Man in Times Square. The male antagonist begins spewing misogynistic language at our hero, a thinly veiled attempt to
Oh no! They went too far. They went full Wokey.
comment on the online backlash. Thor? Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to call you Thor? Damn, feminists are ruining everything.
Oh,
You want to be a
no.
chick superhero? Fine, who the hell cares? But you get your own identity. Thor's a dude. One of the last manly dudes still left.
That is like absolutely flat out spitting in the face of anyone that had a problem with Thor turning into a female, right? The thing being passed down. That's like definitely shooting your audience in the foot or in
What
the
did you do?
face.
Send him to sensitivity training so he'd stop calling Earth girls wenches?
Wow.
Although she doesn't say it out loud.
Yeah, it seemed
Thor's
like
inner monologue,
it's it's that writing that we talk about, like the Veilguard style, where it's literally preaching to you. Was this before Trump was elected? I don't know. When was female Thor released? Yeah, this was before. October 2024 is when Jane Foster became the female version of Thor. So yeah, before he was voted in. So yeah, you're right there in that pretty common area where it was what the woke was starting to come into power. Trump became in, and then it like escalated them because of how he was.
reveals that Aaron's thoughts were about the comments he was receiving. That's for saying feminists like it's a 4-letter word, creep. After Thor breaks Absorbing Man's jaw, Titania enters and finishes the job by knocking out her partner and surrendering. Her reasoning confused many readers. I ain't fighting no woman, Thor. And neither is he. Not today, at least. I'm standing down, out of respect for what you're doing. But just so you
Oh God. Oh.
know, this is a one-time girl power pass. When he wrote the scene, Aaron probably viewed it as a moment of empowerment between two strong female characters. But the fan base had a much different reaction. Critics argued that the interaction between hero and villain had the opposite of its intended effect. Rather than ingratiate the audience to this new take on the beloved character by showcasing her strength and courage, they instead showed her winning a fight because her opponent simply gave up. These few pages spread across the internet rapidly as detractors felt vindicated in their hatred of this new Thor. But what did the sales numbers say? While the figures expectedly dropped following the debut issue, Thor number 1 was Marvel's second best-selling book in October 2014. While Captain America number 25 didn't reach nearly the same heights, the following month's all-new Captain America number 1 also launched up to the number 2 spot of the sales charts. This was a result of a heavy marketing push from Marvel, who had chosen some interesting platforms to announce these changes. While Sam Wilson's new role was revealed by Stephen Colbert on The Colbert Report, Jane Foster becoming Thor was bizarrely unveiled by the ladies of The View.
The View. So yeah, I could see it getting to the second place in the charts because people will just buy it because The View told them to.
Unfortunately, the footage of both of these appearances have been wiped from the internet, but it spoke to the goals of Axel Alonso and Marvel Comics as a whole.
The View is just absolutely the worst.
These changes were designed to reach far beyond the already established comic reading audience. They wanted the world talking about these books, and for a little while, they got their wish. This all laid the foundation for Marvel's next big publishing initiative dubbed All New, All Different. Following the events of comic Secret Wars in 2015, great story by the way, the Marvel Universe was reborn with a brand new set of characters pushed to the forefront. This was accompanied by an image of the stars of this era, but this barely scratched the surface of their plans. Upon the beginning of All New, All Different, or just ANAD for short, change began happening rapidly. A new Avengers team composed entirely of female characters was created, dubbed A-Force. Wolverine was killed and replaced with a woman. The Hulk was killed and replaced with a Korean teenager. Star-Lord of Guardians of the Galaxies
Really?
was briefly replaced
So much for his writing good characters. He just went into like full on change it all mode.
by a female character. Even Miles Morales was folded into the main Marvel continuity, although he and Peter Parker continue to simultaneously use the name Spider-Man. Interestingly, this new diverse wave seemed to only affect
The
Marvel,
A-Force.
as their competition over at DC were less willing to radically change up their character roster. The biggest thing they did was in 2015 when they revealed that Harley Quinn was in a polyamorous lesbian relationship with the Batman villain Poison Ivy, although this was only mentioned in a tweet. It wasn't until 2017 that the two were actually seen kissing in a comic. And even then, artist Chad Hardin went to Twitter to reveal that the drawing that ended up being published had been edited from his original, more passionate intention. Also, many Gooner comic book fans seem to be more open to this style of LGBTQ representation.
It's gotten to the point now that I think the Gooners don't even, well, not the Gooners, but like the anti-woke and all those don't even like the idea of lesbians anymore, which is such a weird concept to me.
Back to Marvel, probably the most consequential of their new additions was Riri Williams, a black teenager who took over as the protagonist of the Invincible Iron Man series under the codename Ironheart, after Tony Stark fell into a coma. Riri was another creation of writer Brian Michael Bendis, who perhaps was trying to recapture the same success he had found with Miles Morales 5 years prior. His stated intention for both characters was similar,
it's like, okay,
taking an established Marvel superhero and creating a fresh new spin on them. Similar to the criticism received by G. Willow Wilson when...
But I can already see the difference there, right? Miles Morales was edited into a different world, and sounds like he was better written than a lot of these other ones in there. Where with Ironheart, they're just directly replacing Iron Man. He fell into a coma, so now it's a black woman.
When she created Kamala Khan, Bendis was subjected to a slew of backlash from people angry that a white man was spearheading this landmark book for diversity. But he defended himself by saying, "I'm the father of 4 children, 2 of whom are an African girl and an African American girl. I don't say that to throw my kids as a shield in front of any critique. I say that as, you see me as a white man, but actually I'm a Jewish man and have a multiracial family. I worry about the trap that means that African American people should only write African American characters and Asian Americans should only write Asian Americans. Everyone should write and draw everything. Everyone has a unique perspective and ability." Of course, those on the other side of the aisle had their own problems with the new Armored Avenger. Aside from the people criticizing her purely for her race and gender, one major talking point was that many readers simply found Ironheart too unlikable. The main example used to support this argument came from Invincible Iron Man #8, which included a flashback scene of Riri in elementary school speaking with her teacher. "I wanted you to know I have decided what I will be when I grow up. Let's hear it. I am going to be a scientist." "That's great." "No, you're supposed to say, you mean like a nurse." And then I say, "Why would I say that? You're supposed to tell me nursing and teaching are noble professions, and that people like me don't get to grow up and be scientists." Why would I do that?
Jesus
That's what they said to the first African-American female astronaut. And she told them, "No, I'm going to be a scientist," and then she did it. Yes, that was a long time ago. Things were different back then, but because of people like her, a girl like you can do whatever you want, fly anywhere you want, and be anyone you want. I was kind of hoping you'd tell me the opposite so I would have something to inspire me to prove you wrong. After more pushback from Riri, her teacher finally relents and decides at random to tell her that she will never be Tony Stark.
Jesus, this is such like terrible writing. Like where did who thought that this was going to like inspire people, even women who enjoy comics, right?
Setting the girl on a new path in life. People who hated the new character used this as the ultimate vindication for their opinion, since they believed she was being portrayed as someone who needed to victimize herself in order to function. Those on the other side argued that these critics didn't know what they wanted. When someone like Jane Foster Thor won a fight too easily, she was called a Mary Sue. But when someone like Riri Williams showed actual flaws, she was lambasted as a bad character. That being said, while she had her fans, Ironheart was not exactly the most beloved new addition to Marvel's canon. In fact, this was around the time that the harshest critics of this new age began to take shape. The YouTube channel Diversity in Comics, which has since been renamed Comics Matter, started uploading around April of 2017 with a series dubbed Marvel Before SJW, in which the owner discussed some of his favorite comics published long before the ANAD era. The low-effort nature of these videos, consisting simply of him pointing his phone camera at a comic book and talking unscripted, allowed him to pump out multiple uploads per day. Eventually, once he decided to branch into scathing reviews of the new comics, his views began to climb exponentially. Unfortunately, while we were working on this video, he privated a substantial chunk of his back catalog of videos, with no archives to be found, and so we've lost...
I wonder if they asked him, I wonder if they questioned him on it, like, hey, did you... Like, we're going to be, you know, we have some questions for you. And then, you know, he heard some of the questions and decided, nope, not going to let that get out.
Lost access to a lot of the clips we've planned to show here. While he was far from the first anti-SJW content creator on YouTube for comics, his style of quickly produced rant videos paired with sensationalist titles came at a time when this strategy was financially viable. The owner of this channel remained anonymous for most of his early career, merely going by the pseudonym Zach. While he was able to criticize pretty much every new comic published by Marvel due to the breakneck pace of his upload schedule, Riri Williams became a particularly strong focus for him early on.
Marvel, when they get a female hero, they can't show her fighting a villain or struggling or doing something heroic. She has to do the like, OMG, I'm like famous or whatever, with a bunch of like idiot airhead millennials screaming to have her you know, get an
it was
autograph,
millennials back
to which
then.
she's, oh, of course, oh, someone's doing a selfie of her. And she has to have this stupid, like, fake modest face, like, OMG, like, autographs are like a thing or whatever.
More than anyone else from the new crop of Marvel heroes, Zach became fixated on figuring out a way to fix Riri, ultimately coming to the conclusion that she would work much better as a villain. This culminated in a project dubbed Re-Rebirth, a fan comic which saw the young heroines fall from grace. He published 2 short comics, Mark 15 and Defeated Iron Man, which he released for free and funded using his rapidly growing Patreon support. However, this was not the end of the Re-Rebirth story, as a YouTuber named VKTR Official created his own set of audio dramas set within that continuity. Zach was thrilled by this, shouting it out on his own channel, although the videos have all since been deleted. Even though Re-Rebirth eventually fizzled out, it proved 2 things. One, Zach had ambitions in comics beyond just talking about them on YouTube. And 2, he was able to rally a community behind him in a way Marvel's modern critics hadn't done. As the Diversity in Comics channel grew, more and more people decided to make their own videos in order to jump on the bandwagon. While it's difficult to find exactly when the name was created, this was the time when
Comicsgate, here we
began to form as a
go.
movement with actual people leading the charge, rather than just a disorganized group of disgruntled fans on social media. Aside from Zach, the most noteworthy creator by far was under the name Comic Artist Pro Secrets. This was a channel created by professional artist Ethan Van Sciver, who had previously worked for DC Comics on titles such as Green Lantern, The Flash, and Batman. What originally started as a place for Ethan to upload drawing tutorials soon evolved into similar anti-SJW commentary as his contemporaries. And his hands-on experience working in the industry quickly made him one of the most sought-after voices. He even maintained his connections with his peers who disagreed with him politically during the beginning of his YouTube tenure. In November of 2017, Van Sciver interviewed beloved and prolific writer Mark Waid, who was working for Marvel at the time, about the current state of the company.
None of us, we're all working with the best of intentions. You don't have to like everything we do. You don't have to like anything some of us do. But everybody's working with the best intentions. No one, and I think you'll back me up on this, man, no one is deliberately making comics to piss you off.
I'm trying to make money.
Van Sciver had been no stranger to controversy prior to his rise to YouTube prominence, though.
What a surprise.
For years, comic book fans had criticized him for his edgy sense of humor and provocative imagery used in his work. For instance, he once released a sketchbook titled My Struggle, a winking reference to a certain Austrian painter's autobiography. Some critics even claim the signature he drew on the cover was meant to resemble a swastika. With this controversial reputation, it should come as no surprise that things eventually bled into real life. In November of 2017, Ethan attended a fan signing event at Gotham City Pizza in Orlando, Florida. While things seemed to go well enough, the next day he posted to Twitter that the restaurant had been vandalized during the night. While there were no witnesses and no suspect was ever caught, Van Sciver placed the blame squarely on the SJWs who had been attacking him over social media. As Comicsgate began to form into what it would eventually become, some people decided to come together to define what exactly they were fighting for. The administrators of the Comicsgate wiki eventually came up with 5 modern trends they wanted to do away with. 1, the adoption of art styles influenced exclusively by progressive politics. 2, the hiring of people based purely on their surface traits and oppressed demographic status.
Yes.
3, the change or outright replacement of beloved classic characters in the interest of shallow appeasement, supposedly in the name of progress. 4, the elite attitude and purge of anything that is not progressive under the mantra of not progressive enough. And finally, 5, the rejection of honest criticism swept aside as harassment or discrimination. As these pro-comics...
I will say that there was, and this is me speaking from the gamer side, like any criticism, and this is still a thing that happens today, like if you... the anti-woke will overuse it, right? If you criticize somebody, then it's harassment, right? I've seen even some of the stuff it still happens to this day, is what I'm really trying to say. I don't like what I said something out in public. You didn't like that or now you're criticizing me for it. You're harassing me, right? And I think that comes, like, people will feel that way mostly because other, fans and followers of that person will go and, voice their opinions or say crazy shit. And it feels like you're getting hit from all angles, but that's just, to me, not the case. It's not what's happening, right? They just criticized you.
Influencers continue to grow, so did the comic book industry continue to give them ample material to discuss. Because yes, we've barely examined the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the outrage-inducing comics Marvel published between 2015 and 2017. Up until this point, we've only talked about the replacement of established white male characters with women and minorities. But to be fair, the overall controversy went far deeper than just that. For instance, take All New X-Men number 40, written once again by our good friend Brian Michael Bendis. This issue contained a conversation between the characters Jean Grey and Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, 2 members of the original X-Men, which revealed that the latter had been gay all this time. Even people who weren't opposed to this change could agree that this moment was handled clumsily. Not only did the story come screeching to a halt for the scene to happen, but it wasn't even Iceman's decision to come out. Rather, Jean Grey used her ability to read minds in order to figure out the information for herself. She
forced him to reveal that he was gay. Wow. Now that is a different level of of woke, I suppose.
And pressured Bobby to admit it. Unlike with his other controversial changes to Marvel canon, it's difficult to find a solid explanation from Bendis as to why he made this decision. The closest he appeared to come was an interview with IGN in which he expressed a joy about his ability to, quote, change the conversation toward the end of his run on X-Men, seemingly a backhanded reference to the fact that his time on the book had been notoriously unpopular. This was far from the only provocative scene or moment from this era either. The fourth issue of the series, Angela, Queen of Hell, included a scene where the ancient Norse god Bor spewed forth a tirade which was comically censored with black boxes and text approximating what he was saying. These included phrases like, a lot of misogynistic filth, red pill, MRA, meninist.
Jesus Christ. And you wonder why, what created these opinions of these people, you know, during this time period, right? There was so many things out there, so many articles, so many TV shows, you know, the View was saying it, how all men are rapists, and you know, you should bow down to women, and it was like this neo-feminism that just was brain dead. It was over the top, right? Most women didn't, like, most women I know, your normal woman, didn't even follow those beliefs.
Casual racism. And the most widely mocked of all of them,
Casual
unsolicited
racism.
opinions on Israel. That last one became a meme for a short period of time as readers were left baffled why such an out-of-place line had been made in the book. Spider-Woman #1 from 2015 began a somewhat controversial saga in which the titular character fought crime while pregnant. Interestingly, the first issue of the prior run of Spider-Woman from the previous year also sparked outrage from the other side of the political spectrum, when one of the variant covers showed the protagonist in a position some argued was overly sexual. The artist Milo Manero was already well known for his erotic work and was set to also draw covers for 2 other upcoming Marvel books. Unfortunately, following the intense backlash for this Spider-Woman painting, the publisher opted to cancel these projects. On the subject of controversial covers, the final issue of the series Mockingbird depicted the title character wearing a t-shirt, which read, "Ask me about my feminist agenda." It goes without saying that this did not go over well with a large section of the comic reading public. The writer, Chelsea...
I was actually expecting this video to be about a Comicsgate anti-woker, but it really is this the head of Marvel at that time and these other artists just absolutely shitting all over their product in the name of diversity.
Kane was bombarded with hate on social media, prompting her to go on a tirade about the backlash. "My ranting wasn't a plea for affirmation. Truly, I'm just done here. I'm amazed by the cruelty comics bring out in people." Soon afterward, Kane deleted her Twitter account. Axel Alonso, who had largely remained silent about most of the online furies surrounding his Marvel reign up until that point, felt the need to finally speak up in his writer's defense. "I stand with Kelsey Kane, condemn online harassment, and think the Marvel Universe and the industry benefits and grows from diverse creators and characters." Although the hate against Chelsea was not that she was a woman or a feminist, but rather that she incorporated a cringe line in the book. Previously, Alonso had been criticized for his response to the rise of Comicsgate. During a Comic-Con panel in 2016, he was quoted describing himself as the last thing from a social justice warrior, which only served to anger both sides of the spectrum. But despite his reluctance to speak too much about the onslaught of controversies, the Mockingbird incident seemed to be a topic he was willing to dive into. In fact, in an issue of The Amazing Spider-Man published the following year, Peter Parker was seen wearing the infamous t-shirt as a one-off joke. Chelsea Kane, on the other hand, was not so amused. Mockingbird had been her first time working with Marvel, and it also ended up being her last. While Mockingbird may have been one of the more controversial books during the Comicsgate era, there was another that stood out from the crowd as being particularly despised: America. Written by Gabby Rivera, this series followed newcomer superhero America Chavez, a gay Latina whose adventures saw her traveling across parallel universes.
Oh no, is this where the gay Latina meme comes from?
This book was a frequent target of diversity in comics, both for the obvious surface-level reasons as well as the plethora of questionable dialogue choices. Even as early as the first issue, the title character was using exclamations such as, "What in the holy menstruation?" But by far the most egregious example came from issue
Imagine
number 5.
if Captain America said something like, "Holy boner, Batman," or you know what I mean? Holy boner, dude. Did you see that? Like, this is crazy.
In which the character Kate Bishop monologues to no one in particular about how incredible America and her girlfriend are together. I'm literally intrigued and in awe of both of them. If this is what it's like to date other women, then I applaud all the women dating women right now because this is incredible. Motorcycle courtship chase? Check. Missiles and explosions? Yup. And now we're just flying together in the sky heading to a giant heart? I swear, if they come back married, I'm going to be jealous. This is probably as good of a time as any to go over some of the preferred phrases used by prominent Comicsgate figures when discussing this era of Marvel. First of all, purse puppies refers to how they felt the books often treated their gay and minority characters like perfect trophies to show off, rather than writing them as realistic.
That's a new one. I didn't know
people.
that one.
Second, they would often describe America and other comics like it as comics for no one. Essentially, this was the term to describe the books that were created to appeal to a diverse new fan base, but often failed to meet that goal. While the legitimacy of this claim can be argued on an individual basis, America specifically did not seem to strike a chord with readers in the way Marvel had hoped. Issue number 1 didn't exactly top the charts. In spite of this, it managed to stick around for 12 issues, with the final installment crawling across the finish line by only selling a little over 6,000 copies nationwide. I feel
if you know a comic is dying, like, I'm sure they had some legal thing that they had to uphold, but like, if your comic is dying, or is dead on arrival and not doing well, why would you keep pushing for it?
Like Chris Chan would sell more copies of a new edition of Sonichu. This is also a good opportunity to talk about the careers of the people behind these despised comics. Before Mockingbird, Chelsea Kane had never worked on a comic before, as she had previously made a career writing thriller novels. Gabby Rivera similarly did not have a background in comics, as Marvel had plucked her from the world of young adult fiction. Supporters of Comicsgate are...
Like, do you see, like, this she wasn't even a comics writer, she was just plucked up to write a comic.
Argued that these recent outsider hires had only been given jobs because of their gender, race, or sexual orientation,
I mean, that
rather
seems
than
like
any real qualifications. Of course, the vast majority of Marvel's writers were people who had been working in comics for years, but it didn't stop critics from saying most of the new diverse hires were people who didn't deserve the position they were given. And it was this specific point of ire that would create the biggest skirmish of Comicsgate yet. On July 23, 2017, Florence Steinberg, the former secretary of Stan Lee as well as a prolific comic publisher in her own rights, passed away. A few days later, on the 28th, a group of female Marvel staffers decided to go out for milkshakes in her honor. Heather Antos, who was an editor at the time, gathered everyone together for a selfie, which she then posted on social media with the caption, "It's the Marvel Milkshake Crew." For Antos and all the women featured in the image, this was nothing more than a fun little thing that they most likely expected to forget about minutes after uploading. But when supporters of Comicsgate saw this, things escalated in a way nobody could have predicted. These milkshakes definitely brought all the boys to the yard, as people who hated the current state of Marvel...
Really? And you can see where they use those pictures now. Like, obviously that picture isn't the entirety of the workforce. It's people going out for a little milkshake to have fun or in honor of maybe a friend, right? But the animosity is so hard, people immediately think that's the crew. Like, you see these pictures brought up all the time. Like, this is what the gaming industry is now. And it's like, on a woman's day, or it's the females getting together for a picture, and it's not the full representation of what the whole crew is. It's just a small portion of the team.
Comics descended on Antos. To them, this single image represented everything they had been criticizing for years at that point, and they certainly made their voices heard. Unfortunately, it's difficult now to gauge what the exact size of the blowback was, since Antos has privated her Twitter account, and most of the articles from the time did not archive the negative responses. Even a particularly infamous tweet from Diversity in Comics, in which he called the women fake geek girls, has practically been lost to time, and finding a single screenshot took a lot of digging. But what we do know for certain is that the firestorm was so severe, industry professionals and fans alike decided to band together in defense of these women, creating a counter-movement dubbed Make Mine Milkshake, a play on the old company slogan, Make Mine Marvel. Supporters across social media began posting selfies, drinking milkshakes, and reading the newer, diverse comics. Even the official Marvel Twitter account got in the action, uploading a panel from the series Young Avengers in which the character Hela drank a milkshake and said, quote, "Some people harbor the most terrible grudges." This event skyrocketed Comicsgate to the mainstream. Previously, it had just been scuffles between angry fans and individual creators that went largely ignored by the wider public. Now, though, the movement had made themselves heard, and the industry as a whole had taken a firm stance against everything the movement stood for. That being said, this doesn't exactly tell the full story of how Marvel was responding. A few months prior, Axel Alonso, alongside Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing David Gabriel, held a retailer summit to address the fear held by many comic book store owners at the time. The declining sales had been hurting them most of all, and many blamed the all-new, all-different characters for the financial strain they were in.
What would you call it if you started this project and suddenly now you're losing sales? Yeah, it's probably the way you've been handling this. And you could see in the beginning where they had like the passion and idea to do it, right? The first couple of characters did well, and then they just put their foot on the brake and just like, write anything. We don't give a shit.
There were plenty of anecdotes of potential customers entering their stores hoping to read comics featuring the superheroes they had seen in the widely popular Marvel Cinematic Universe films, only to leave empty-handed upon discovering the characters featured in the current books were completely different. Marvel was shockingly upfront about these problems, and one particular quote from Gabriel caught the attention of the public. What we heard was that people didn't want any more diversity. They didn't want female characters out there. That's what we heard, whether we believe that or not. I don't know that that's really true, but that's what we saw in sales. We saw the sales of any character that was diverse, any character that was new. Our female characters, anything that was not a core Marvel character, people were turning their nose up against. That was difficult for us because we had a lot of fresh, new, exciting ideas that we were trying to get out, and nothing new really worked. Gabriel quickly clarified a statement here, assuring readers that Marvel would not be giving up on their new diverse characters. Nevertheless, it still courted backlash from onlookers who accused the comic publishing juggernaut of kowtowing to trolls and bigots. This would end up being one of the final nails in the coffin for Axel Alonso's career at Marvel. Not only had his time in office been marred with one controversy after the next, but the struggling sales numbers spoke for themselves. Just a few months later, in November, it was announced that he was out as editor-in-chief, replaced by C.B. Cebulski. While no reason was given for his exit, most people had some idea as to why this had happened. Just a year after Cebulski took charge of Marvel, the company launched a new initiative dubbed Fresh Start. This saw the grand return of the original Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Wolverine, and all the other characters who had been replaced in the past few years. Even with Alonso gone and all the beloved classic characters returned, people like diversity in comics, and Ethan Van Sciver continued their crusade. For them, just because one man had left Marvel, that didn't mean the perceived cancer was gone. And those in the industry were growing more and more frustrated with the growth of Comicsgate. In August of 2018, a Twitter user posted a since-deleted clip of fan-favorite writer and artist Darwin Cook, who had passed away a couple years prior, speaking at a convention about how he didn't enjoy established characters being turned gay to boost sales. This was used as proof that the departed creator would have been a supporter of Comicsgate. But when his widow Marcia saw this tweet, she disagreed. "Hi guys, this is Darwin's wife, and I can guarantee he thought you Comicsgate idiots were a bunch of crybaby losers ruining comics. Because you are."
She broke
Supporters
the
of
golden
Comicgate
rule.
began going after Marcia for this
Don't
comment.
feed. You say don't feed the trolls. Don't feed the anyone who's coming into it, right?
To which she continued to double down and clarify what her husband had actually meant. Ethan Van Sciver soon stepped in, attempting to clear the air and not let the situation get out of control. "I hate Twitter, Marcia. Everyone loved Darwin and likes to project themselves onto him now that he's gone. He's terribly missed by all. As for who he was and what he believed, nobody knew him like you did. And nobody will truly know
I've
how he
seen this
felt
guy
about
before.
things like you do. Period." Marcia soon replied to Van Sciver, asking if he would tell people to apologize for harassing her. While he did do as she asked, it wasn't exactly what she had meant. Yes, SJWs in comics apologized to Marcia Cook for cynically using her as a shield to attack Comicsgate and for lying to her. This prompted a number of industry creatives to tweet in support of Marcia, denouncing Comicsgate and everything it stood for. Writer Tom Taylor, who had previously been behind the female Wolverine reboot, tweeted the phrase, "I believe comics are for everyone. There is no excuse for harassment. There is no place for homophobia, transphobia, racism, or misogyny in comics criticism." These words ended up being copied and pasted onto the Twitter feeds of many of Taylor's peers.
And this is the thing, like you take people not liking the characters for, you know, this crazy writing, this other stuff, and you just say flat out, you're racist, you're homophobic, you're misogynistic. They're not just saying it to these Comicsgate people. They're saying it to everyone who reads comics, right? If you don't like this particular comic book character, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, and all these other things. And when you start calling people things that they know they're not, yeah, you're gonna start to get backlash for it. That's just how it works.
Becoming something of an anti-Comicsgate mantra. While this was embraced by fans at large, there were some who criticized the fact that people only spoke up against harassment when white women were being attacked. Even Marcia Cook herself agreed with that sentiment. But the comic book industry, all publicly and vocally standing together against Comicsgate, did nothing to slow it down. In fact, it may have served to amplify it. In 2018, Diversity in Comics produced a video that will live in infamy known simply as The Dark Roast. Over the past couple years, Zack had made countless public comments going after the people he felt were ruining Marvel and the comic book industry as a whole, but he always tried to show some kind of decorum by watching the specific language he used. The Dark Roast, on the other hand, was a private video intended to be seen only by his most loyal supporters, in which Zack allowed himself to truly let loose. Of course, the rant eventually leaked to the public, and what he had to say continues to shock people even all these years later.
So the Dark Roast is the stuff where I get to say stuff like, Dan Slott looks like a pedophile. And I don't have to like dance around. I don't have to say parody or wink wink. I'm like, seriously, he looks like a pedophile. But all SJW writers look like pedophiles. The only real difference is, does it look like they're into little boys or little girls? Like, Dan Slott, I'd say little girls. Mark Waid, probably little girls. Brian Bendis, probably like a switch hitter. You know, it has to suit his fancy for the day.
Across the 20-minute diatribe, Zack tore apart anyone and everyone who had ever irritated him. Among the more infamous of his statements was an accusation that Mark Waid used his position of power in the industry to attract women.
Mark Waid is also a creeper. The guy frickin' used he used DC as a frickin' OkCupid. Devin Grayson literally like sucked her way into the comic industry. Usually you get out of the industry because you suck. She got into it from sucking. So don't you know, here comes bald, short, homely Mark Waid punching down, or maybe fisting down. All of a sudden he's dating her. It was like, she was like 22, he was like pushing 40. So yeah, so he's a creeper. I've had pros tell me like he's in for it because basically his whole life, dude freaking left his wife so he can go freaking hit on cosplay girls. It's freaking ridiculous. The dude's like 55 with freaking emotional continence of freaking a 2-year-old.
Zach also accused many of his critics of...
just going around saying that for no reason isn't any better, I suppose, than anyone calling you a homophobe or sexist or anything like that. But I wonder what time period this was, because there was a point in the internet where everyone was calling each other pedophiles. It felt like channels were getting destroyed because people were getting called pedophiles.
Running sock puppet accounts to make the backlash against them seem more severe than it was. On top of that, he dubbed prominent trans writer Mags Visaggio a trans trender, and used some very particular language to describe a comics journalist by the name of Matt Santori Giffith.
I actually went to go hesitate myself, and then I realized that I'm on the dark roast. He's a fag. I'm still going to make a little caveat. I think the gay people listening know what I mean, because I live in a gay neighborhood. There's a difference between a gay man and a fucking fag. Matt Santori Giffith is a fucking fag.
This is like the same argument that people will say there's a difference between a black man and the N-word.
He's just this like flouncing, like
he's trying to Chris
super
Rock
dramatic. Everything's rape, everything's harassment, everything's bigotry.
As if that all wasn't a bad enough look, Zach saved his harshest words for Heather Antos and the other so-called milkshake girls.
Heather Antos is a cum dumpster who got a job at Marvel because Jordan, what's his name? Jordan White. So the story is that she went and saw him at a convention. It's like, I'd like to be an editor. And he's like, oh, this is going to be a hard sell for HR. Like Jordan White's going to go to Marvel HR. I really need you to hire her. My spank bank is getting incredibly low. Spank bank is the mental image you have of women when you off to them. Funny thing is that I saw a couple of
you have to explain that to
the
people?
milkshake girls, and it was very, very, very odd. The milkshake girls were all of a sudden, like 80% of the associate editors were female, and none of them had any experience. They are literally just work girlfriends for these creepy middle-aged or approaching middle-aged white guys who can't get any girl to talk. The funny thing is, people are like, oh, is there a lot of, I think there's going to be like a Hollywood, like bunch of sexual harassment suits and Marvel. Like, no, these guys are cucks. Like, literally talking to them, they're jizzing in their pants. Like, they just want a girl around to, oh my God, Heather just DM'd me and she said, LOL. And this is just off for like 5 hours.
These are just some of the examples of what was said, and it's not an exaggeration to point out that Zach truly went scorched earth on all his enemies.
Yeah, sounds like it.
His words here have followed him for years and only served to paint a bigger target on his back from industry pros who already had ample reason to hate him. Even some of his supporters found it to be over the line. Following the viral spread of the Dark Roast, even more mainstream outlets began taking notice of Comicsgate. While most chose to report on Zach's vitriol from a distance, comedian Jim Jeffries decided to reach out to Diversity in Comics directly.
I've actually seen him in person. He came over to a USO. Yeah, he was on a USO show at one of the bases I was overseas. He was a pretty funny guy, but like he got really popular in the United States for a lot of his military jokes and things like that. And then like his next showing was just, it was like god awful. It was complete, like he went full leftist on it, and it just didn't hit with that audience. I guess he still has one, but I know like the military side of it, he kind of completely lost those.
To interview him for his Comedy Central show. This was the first time the anonymous YouTuber showed his face publicly, and his real name was revealed to be Richard.
There's an actual backlash against diversity in comic books. And the movement is led by a supervillain. He runs a YouTube channel, broadcast from his secret lair / bedroom closet.
Of course, Jim took the opportunity to confront Richard over his comments in the Dark Roast.
You called a woman a dumpster.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, it was a bad idea.
Overall, this didn't end up being the brutal teardown Jeffries probably expected it to be. In fairness, it's difficult to get into the minutia of a debate like this in a 7-minute TV segment. But the fact that the host himself admitted he was not an active reader of comics did not set him off on the right foot as an authority on the subject. He did assemble a panel of diverse superhero fans to argue against Richard's ideology, but they too did not have enough time to get much deeper than the surface level. It also didn't help that there were multiple instances of Jeffries obviously editing Richard to make him seem as bad as possible.
Okay, so how do you feel about this black Superman? Okay, a slightly less black Superman.
Yeah, no, that's actually better.
Ironically, Jim's video may have had the opposite of its intended effect. While the harshness of the Dark Roast had alienated some of the YouTuber's fan base, the comedian's lackluster takedown attempt reunited them once again around a common enemy. And the YouTube upload of the segment currently sits at roughly a 70% dislike ratio. In spite of the best efforts of their detractors, Comicsgate's influence only continued to grow across 2018. In fact, it was undoubtedly the most important year for the movement. It was during this time that the ringleaders decided to leverage their ever-expanding audience to increase their ambitions. They wouldn't just be talking about comic books anymore. They would start making their own. In June, Ethan Van Sciver announced that he was quitting DC Comics and launched an Indiegogo campaign to fund a reboot of his creator-owned series from the 90s, Cyberfrog. This was a rousing success, raising significantly more than its initial $8,000 goal. This momentous achievement led to several other comic book professionals who were similarly dissatisfied with the state of the industry reaching out to Ethan in order to collaborate. On September 2nd, it was announced that Dave Sim, creator of the popular indie comic Cerebus, would be writing an upcoming Cyberfrog story. Similar to Van Sciver, Sim was also a very controversial figure in the world of comics, with his hardline stance against feminism earning him scorn from peers. This of course only made him more appealing to supporters of Comicsgate, and they largely ignored any outcry against his hiring. But there was one criticism they couldn't turn a blind eye to. Later in 2018, Van Sciver published a video decrying gay shipping culture in the Star Wars fandom in which he likened it to grooming. This caught the attention of Twitter user Ren Famous, who accused the comic book creator of hypocrisy. She posted a screenshot of Dave Sim admitting to having sex with a 21-year-old girl who he had originally met when she was just 14. Detractors argue that if fans simply drawing two fictional characters in a homosexual relationship qualified as child grooming, surely this did as well. Ethan, for his part, initially downplayed the seriousness of Sim's admission, comparing it to the age gap of Elvis and Priscilla Presley, a famous couple known to have a very functional relationship. Eventually, though, he was forced to concede and announce that Sim had been removed from the project. But Ethan was far from the only person disgruntled with the industry who was making his own comic. In fact, it was also during this time that he started Comicsgate Live, a series of streams which provided a platform for independent creators to promote their own projects. But there were other people outside his audience who had ambitions of their own. In September, a creator known as Vox Day, who was also very vocal in the surrounding conversation and had already been releasing his own works for some time, announced a new publishing imprint with a name that caused a great deal of backlash, Comicsgate. People were outraged that someone would take the name of a communal movement and turn it into a personal brand. Vox Day didn't seem to think he had done anything wrong, though, as he expressed in an interview with Bounding Into Comics when they asked him if he saw
good old
his
Bounding
new
Into
imprint
Comics
as associated with the movement. It depends upon who you mean by Comicsgate. If you mean rejecting the core 5 points, then we are very clearly Comicsgate. If you mean something that is SJW inclusive, intrinsically opposed to identity politics, and owned by Ethan Van Sciver, then we very clearly are not. This represented a small but growing distaste for the trend Ethan Van Sciver had started off using Comicsgate to fund personal projects. Although for the time being, Vox Day's opinions remained fairly niche as the larger conversation was overtaken by another comic being created by a friend of Ethan's. The creator of Diversity in Comics, Richard, announced his own project, Jawbreaker's Lost Souls, which was a great success on Indiegogo. After the campaign concluded, it was announced that the book would be released through independent publisher Antarctic Press. This caused a large stir in the comic book community, with fans asking their local stores not to sell Jawbreakers or any other Antarctic book until they ended their deal with Richard. In response, a number of retailers on Facebook discussed their plans to boycott the comic, which the creator quickly caught wind of and posted a screenshot of to Twitter. Keep in mind that the censoring in this image was done by the article which archived the story, and Richard's post showed the names of all involved. And this was far from the end of the crusade, as he allegedly posted the information of multiple other stores that publicly refused to sell Jawbreakers, leading to all of them receiving a slew of threatening messages. Although it's important to note he denies that specific claim, and I can't find any solid evidence to back it up. This behavior was seen to many in the industry as wildly unprofessional. This was what prompted Mark Waid to enter the picture, posting on Facebook that he was attempting to get in contact with Antarctic Press to sternly discuss the situation. It wasn't long before Antarctic was forced to make a statement announcing that they would no longer be publishing Jawbreakers. People who supported the campaign on Indiegogo were furious, looking every which way for someone to pin the blame on. The obvious choice was Mark Waid, since he had made such a large public statement about speaking to the publisher, and Richard was happy to feed into that fervor. The vicious intimidation by Mark Waid yesterday was far beyond the realm of decency. Intimidation, threats, coercion against a publisher, a medical professional, and a good man brought to his ragged edge in just 2 days from the pressure. Disgusting.
This whole thing gets to the point that it's it's absolutely going over the top. People are throwing heat back and forth, giving out the full names of the shops and things like that may be planning on it. It gets so visceral.
This is evidence for the supposed vicious...
if you're giving out the name of the shops, you're definitely doing it because you want your fan base to go and harass them.
Intimidation, you might ask? A screenshot of a second-hand retelling of a post from 4chan about how Waid had apparently used Marvel's name to lord power over Antarctic Press, prompting the indie publisher to threaten legal action against the comics juggernaut. Even the writer of this accusation told readers to take it with a grain of salt, and Antarctic quickly stepped in to clarify that their communication with Waid had been cordial and legal action was never considered. But even so, the war between Richard and Waid had officially begun. On September 19, 2018, Diversity in Comic filed a lawsuit against Mark Waid for tortious interference with contract and defamation. He doubled down on the accusation that Waid had threatened Antarctic into dropping Jawbreakers and claimed that the prolific writer had effectively blackballed Richard from the comic industry. Waid quickly hired a lawyer named Mark Zaid, who, despite what his name may imply, was not just Mark Waid representing himself while wearing a fake novelty mustache. He also started a GoFundMe campaign for his defense, which, thanks to the support of his peers in the comic book industry, managed to raise over $81,000. In response, Ethan Van Sciver decided to launch a rival GoFundMe on Richard's behalf, collecting $146,000. The description of this campaign showed just how much Ethan's opinion of Mark had changed since they talked on a live stream only a year prior. Mark Waid, a bully with a history of harassing those who disagree with him, took it upon himself to call Zack's publisher and interfere with the contract they had between them. He is at the very heart of the problem in comics. And we must not allow Richard's limited resources to be the reason why he isn't stopped. As is the case with many court proceedings, neither party discussed the case much publicly during its 2-year arbitration. It wasn't until December of 2020 that they released a joint statement saying that Richard had voluntarily decided to dismiss the suit, with neither side admitting wrongdoing. It may feel a bit anticlimactic for a story with such a bombastic opening to end so quietly, but such is often the case when conflicts go from social media to the courtroom. As for Jawbreakers, Richard ultimately decided to self-publish it under his own label, Splato Comics, through which he had released multiple other crowdfunded books over the following years. At this point, it
How
may
well
seem
did those
that
books
the era
do, though, I wonder? Because I can't think of any, like, Gamergate comics that changed the market.
Comicsgate rallying together against a comic they hated was a thing of the past. And for the most part, it was. People like diversity in comics, and Van Sciver continued criticizing newer releases, but there really wasn't anything like Ironheart or America coming out anymore that they could rally their fans behind in hatred. That changed in March of 2020 when Marvel announced a new series that almost served as a last hurrah for everything.
I think that's what we're at that stage with the Gamergate 2 guys. I don't even really consider them Gamergate at this point. Just fake retards that chose the name. There's less and less woke that is unacceptable, you could say, that preaches to you, and it's just hard for them to find something to grip onto.
Comicsgate stood against. The release in question was a 30th anniversary celebration of the 1990 series The New Warriors, featuring a brand new team consisting of original and diverse superheroes. But there were some additions that people took great issue with. First off, there was Screen Time, who the press described as a meme-obsessed super teen whose brain became connected to the internet after becoming exposed to his grandfather's experimental internet gas. They didn't explain what exactly...
Who let that go to press? Who thought that?
internet gas was, and we may never know. Courting much more controversy, however, were the twin heroes Snowflake and Safe Space, the former of whom was non-binary. Writer Daniel Kibblesmith explained that he had chosen those names because he wanted to reclaim these words that were widely seen to have a derogatory context. The response, while predictably negative, was far greater than anyone expected. Not only did Comicsgate hate it, but so too did the people who normally celebrated Marvel's efforts at representation.
I mean, I could absolutely see why. Like, those two, just by themselves, are a caricature of what people might consider like non-binary and things like that. It's not even trying. It's just so bad.
The main point of contention on the other end was that Daniel Kibblesmith, a cisgender man, shouldn't be deciding how to reclaim hurtful language for non-binary people.
The character designs of these characters, the names of these characters, they do not seem like they're here in earnest. They don't seem like these are a push for nice, genuine diversity, which I am all for. I think it's high time that we got some legitimate non-binary representation in comic books. But this does not seem like this is going to be it.
Not only that, but the image of the twins shown on the cover seemed to depict them more as a romantic couple than siblings. The controversy got so large that even people like Joe Rogan were talking about it. The trailer for the comic on Marvel's YouTube channel was universally disliked, and the company fell silent on the future of the series. But in the midst of the havoc of COVID-19, publishers across the industry were forced to cancel a number of upcoming books. For Marvel, this included The New Warriors, which was quietly removed from their release schedule with no comment
I
given
wonder
as to
why.
But that wasn't quite the end of the story. In July of 2024, an anonymous Marvel insider leaked the unreleased first issue of the hated series to a few Comicsgate creators, including Richard. While these YouTubers were instructed not to reveal the entire comic, they did make videos going over a few pages. And that was pretty much the last great controversy for Marvel Comics when it came to diversity. But that begs the question, what became of everyone who got caught up in the whirlwind? Well, Heather Antos left Marvel in March of 2018 to become editor-in-chief at an esports betting website called Unicorn. The site has since shut down after charges were filed against them by the SEC for selling an
Ooh, what a change.
unregistered token called Unicoin Gold. Antos now works as a freelance editor. Brian Michael Bendis, on the other hand, is still very successful in the world of mainstream comics. Most recently, it was announced that several of his independent projects were being developed into TV shows by Amazon. Similarly, people like G. Willow Wilson, Jason Aaron, and Tom Taylor continue to find consistent work in the space. Mark Waid is currently writing for DC, although the events of the last few years certainly seem to have taken a toll on his mental health. Most recently, he expressed his hopelessness on the state of the world following the results of the 2024 election.
Oh,
Even if by
God,
some
yeah.
miracle this turns around, I don't believe in the basic goodness of my fellow Americans anymore, and without this, I cannot write superheroes. There's no point. When you see a decline in the quality of
come
my
on,
work
bud.
soon, you'll be able to trace it back to this night. As for the likes of Gabby Rivera and Chelsea Kane, they haven't done any work for the two big comic publishers since the end of America and Mockingbird, respectively. After Axel Alonso left, he started his own company called Artists, Writers, and Artisans, or AWA for short, through which he continues to release the work of independent creators to this day. But what about the characters that these writers helped create that started the Comicsgate movement in the first place? While some like Carol Danvers, Miles Morales, and Kamala Khan have all continued to be featured heavily in Marvel stories, others have stepped back from the spotlight. At least that's the case in the comics. Over the past few years, more and more of these so-called SJW characters have begun to pop up in big-budget films.
Yep.
In fact, it's pretty much all of them. Miles, Carol, Kamala, Sam Wilson's Captain America, Jane Foster's Thor, Riri Williams, and even America Chavez have been adapted. At the same time, box office profits for Marvel's latest movies have taken a notable decline.
Yeah.
It
makes you wonder, like, seeing how the comic books were received. I could say Captain Marvel, right? That one seemed well. The Miles Morales cartoons have done incredibly well. I think that was the different art style, not just thrown into the Marvel universe, cinematic universe area, but like, why would you like the controversy behind the new Thor and some of the other ones that they're showing in here? Like, why would you push those movies knowing that that was already a problem for the fan base in comic books and they saw a loss in money? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, what was the end game? What were the meetings?
Two facts connected? Well, there are certainly some people I can think of who would say yes. Which brings us to the current status of Comicsgate. While the movement still exists online, its reach and influence is nowhere near what it was just a few years prior. There were a couple more controversies in 2021, interestingly enough revolving around DC rather than Marvel. It was that year that the company received some flack when they revealed that both Tim Drake, the third Robin, and John Kent, son of Superman, were bisexual. Not only that, but when writer and artist Ed Piskor was accused of inappropriately messaging an underage girl in 2024, Ethan Van Sciver was quick to throw himself into the narrative, publicly celebrating the downfall of a comic book pro who he believes stood against Comicsgate. However, when Piskor tragically decided to take his own life, Van Sciver took a hard pivot to denouncing the SJW bullies who drove the man to such a dark place. Even so, Comicsgate itself was only a small aspect for most of those controversies, and that mostly came down to the former ringleaders losing their grip on the conversation. Ethan has drawn the ire of many of his former supporters for trying to push them out of the community. While he claimed these were people whose views were too extreme, detractors claim that he was just trying to cancel those that were making comics that competed with his own.
Ethan actually went out and then was called out on it. He was put, said, this is so tacky, a kill count for the people that he's canceled. So he's proud of it. He knows he's canceled people. He knows he's done it. And he it's not really effective anymore.
On top of that, Ethan has also been criticized for being incredibly slow to release his own crowdfunded book, and has been accused of drug and alcohol abuse, although those are admittedly mainly just memes from people who dislike him. But that reflects the much larger reason for why Comicsgate fell apart. People became resentful when they saw the leader of the movement's goals shift from changing the mainstream to promoting his own pet projects, whether you think the response was justified or not. Diversity in comics is in a similar boat, maintaining a steady content stream on YouTube and crowdfunding books on Indiegogo. But judging from some of his recent videos, as well as deleting his old uploads, it seems like he has a bit of remorse for the cultural circle jerk he helped to cultivate. In conclusion, as long
can
as there
happen.
is a comic book industry, there will always be fans angry about changes being made to their favorite characters. But for a brief period of time, the stars aligned so as to focus that rage into a force that truly made its voice heard. To its supporters, it was a movement for change that fought back against the wokeness in superhero stories. To its detractors, it only served to make the comic book fandom significantly more toxic. And while Comicsgate itself no longer holds the same grasp on the culture, its impact will likely continue to be felt for years to come.
Good video, good video. I mean, it's interesting to see the I guess the mimicry of Gamergate to other ones. The indie game who lost. Oh, that's Gamer from Mars. That's going to be a long video. That may be one we watch later. Ooh, what do we have now? I actually expected that to go a little bit longer. Illuminati. That's another hour long. Let's see if we can find something while we finish. To finish up the night. One day I'll be good at actually understanding how long my... Oh, we can do this one. We can do this one. Yeah, we got time. Or actually, let's do this, because we already watched.
And do you use ChatGPT?
We'll watch Otterly Noah's Disney and OpenAI, The Unholy Marriage, and the crazy things that's probably going on there.
When raising your baby?
I do. I mean, I feel kind of bad about it.
This statement is absolutely insane. Like, what do you mean you can't raise your child without AI? This is it comes off as 100% fake. You're just trying to push your product.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
So, just recently, it's been reported that the Walt Disney Company signed a $1 billion deal with OpenAI. This deal is meant to allow users of OpenAI Sora program to officially generate over 200 different characters from the Disney library. Needless to say, this is something that a lot of people are currently upset over, especially with AI Slop taking over a lot of different avenues of the entertainment industry. Disney has been a much maligned company for a while now, and rightfully so, but this seems to be an entirely new kind of low for them. It's also incredibly hypocritical since, funny enough, the exact day this deal was announced, Disney tried to sue Google and Gemini for supposedly using their characters without their authorization. And earlier this year, they were part of a trifecta that included them, Universal Pictures, and Warner Brothers that ended up suing Midjourney for supposedly using their characters unauthorized. So why exactly is it now that they're allowing a giant AI firm to use 200 of their characters for AI-generated videos?
Because they want to not pay artists to constantly make those videos. It's the AAA versus indie argument, where smaller companies tend to at least understand they want to keep actual artists there that AI is not. Where big execs, the only thing they see is, you're telling me I could get AI and, not hire any more artists and get rid of all the ones that I have to pay for? AI doesn't need health insurance. It doesn't need time off. It doesn't, need to go on vacation because its wife is pregnant.
It's also ironic that Disney, the biggest family-friendly company in the world, well, with an asterisk anyway, is choosing to align themselves with a company run by the guy who openly admits that he uses ChatGPT to decide how he raises his kid.
I know that you and your husband just had a baby. Congratulations. Yeah. And do you use ChatGPT when raising your baby?
I do. I mean, I feel kind of bad about it.
It sounds like such a targeted question, too. He's like, I need you to ask me this question.
I cannot imagine having gone through that, like figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT. Clearly, people did it for a long time.
Oh my God, bro.
Man, imagine being a parent in 2025 and using ChatGPT to raise your kid. We are absolutely cooked here. But I think one of the more interesting aspects of this deal is actually just how crappy of a deal it is on OpenAI's end. For those unaware, OpenAI is currently spending so freely at the moment that $1 billion, which is exactly the deal they made with Disney, will only cover 3 to 4 weeks of their estimated losses. Based on those numbers, they would actually need 1,001 other $1 billion Disney deals just to keep going. So you might be asking yourself, why exactly did Scott Altman and OpenAI even accept this deal when it's not even really that good for them at all? Well, really, the answer lies in exactly what was just stated here. OpenAI pretty much needs any investment it can get at this point just to keep going. In fact, the only reason they've really been able to keep going as long as they have now is because they have some of the biggest investors around. Microsoft, Nvidia, and now Disney have all invested in OpenAI, and it hasn't really done OpenAI as much good as it has done those companies. Ultimately, if OpenAI wasn't constantly getting investment from giant mega corporations like this, it actually would have collapsed a long time ago. But
it sounds like they're the only thing keeping these companies, like these AI companies, alive, because I think the other ones are doing just as bad, is the fact that these huge businesses are buying into them. But why would you buy into something that's already starting to collapse? Your hope that it may start saving you money one day?
Unfortunately for...
I mean, we've seen that the technology isn't that great in terms of AI. AI hallucinates a lot. It'll make up information to please you. It'll pull its stuff from Reddit, its sources from Reddit. It's not reliable.
Everybody else, the big suits at top keep investing in this company, and so we're gonna...
It gives extra fingers.
keep seeing AI slop as long as there's investment in it. Part of the reason Disney has also chosen to invest in OpenAI is because they also want legal grounds to sue anyone else that tries to produce any of their characters using AI. Currently, OpenAI actually has a 1-year license to use these 200 Disney characters, so they have exclusive rights to use them as opposed to any other AI firm. According to Disney themselves, part of the reason why they're handing over 200 of their characters to OpenAI is for copyright reasons, and so no other AI firm can actually use them, but let's face it, we know that's not true. If Disney really wants to, they can go ahead at any time and sue any company that's making AI-generated versions of their characters, and they have many times before, like I said earlier. The only reasons they're actually doing this is because A, they think it'll benefit them in the long run by being an early player in the burgeoning AI game, and B, it's pretty clear they're getting the much better end of this deal between them and OpenAI, given the fact that OpenAI could collapse at any moment. I've seen a lot of people very surprised at Disney doing this, which honestly, I'm kind of surprised that people are surprised about this. I don't think everyone is really aware of all the signs there were that were pointing at Disney eventually making a deal like this. A lot of this you can actually trace all the way back to even just 2022 when AI was starting to really pick up in the mainstream overall. In order to understand the full story here, however, and also understand where Disney initially got so hooked on AI, I think it's important to look at the person that arguably is responsible for some of the most encouragement of usage of AI in Hollywood overall, that being renowned director James Cameron. I honestly don't think James Cameron has gotten enough flack whatsoever for just how many times he's blatantly encouraged the use of AI in the film industry. James Cameron absolutely is a great director and has made some of the greatest and definitely most profitable films of all time, but he's also unfortunately a major advocate for AI, and in fact is the head of the Stability AI board of directors. He's also been working with Disney for quite a while now, first having designed Avatar: The World of Pandora for Walt Disney World back in 2017. And later on, he ended up making Disney's most profitable film of 2022 by far with Avatar: The Way of Water, the sequel he'd been working on forever. However, it was around this time that we started to see some worrying signs from James Cameron in terms of his opinion on AI. Not long after the release of Avatar: The Way of Water, he ended up getting interviewed and asked about his opinion on AI usage in Hollywood, and this is what he had to say.
The thing that I've been thinking about lately, because a lot of the hesitation in Hollywood and entertainment in general are issues of the source material for the training data and who deserves what and copyright protection and all that sort of thing. And I think people are looking at it all wrong, personally. I think we are all. I'm an artist. Anybody that's an artist, anybody that's a human being, is a model. You're a model already.
Yeah.
You know, you got a 3.5 pound meat computer. You're not carrying all the training data with you. You're creating a model as you go through life to process quickly through that model every new situation that comes on.
Naturally, this didn't go over very well for him since Cameron was comparing an actual AI model to a real human artist, two things that are, by definition, very different. An AI model does not simply take inspiration from other pieces of art like a human artist usually does, unlike what James Cameron is saying here. Rather, it steals directly from other artists and creates an amalgamation of other pieces of art that aren't its own in order to create whatever prompt it is given. That is very different from simply a human artist taking inspiration from other artists. Cameron got a lot of—
This is an argument I've seen multiple times too, where like, oh no, it's the same process as the human brain looking at things and creating something off of it. No, it seems to me it's more in line with the guy who traces something and then tries to add in little changes to it to make it look different.
A flack for this comparison, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, this didn't stop him from just a year later becoming the bane of pretty much every physical movie collector on the planet. And funny enough, this is also the exact moment where we started to see Disney themselves leaning more into embracing AI in general. For those who don't know, in 2024, James Cameron released 3 of his movies in 4K for the first time in collaboration with Disney. These films were Aliens, True Lies, and The Abyss, all films initially produced by Fox and now officially owned by Disney. As a result, they were overseen directly by Cameron and distributed by Disney's physical media label Buena Vista Home Entertainment. However, while it was cool these films were finally being put out on 4K, they were incredibly controversial when they came out and caused quite an uproar in the physical movie community because of the fact they were all upscaled using AI. That's right, instead of just going about a normal 4K transfer, James Cameron intentionally used AI to upscale these movies. And the results, at least for Aliens and True Lies, were pretty drastic to say the least. For those who don't know how 4K remasters are generally done in Hollywood, usually they take the original camera negative of a film, scan it, clean it, make sure to repair any sort of damage done to the original negative, and also make sure that the colors match the original 35mm print. This is also often done with as little meddling as possible to the film itself to keep the original experience as pure as can be. This is often really important, especially—
it just sounds like laziness to try and get it done. And you end up with the result is people look closely at it and they can tell the difference of when you see something that's, fucked like this.
When remastering films, that came out before every film was shot digitally. James Cameron's 4K remasters of Aliens and True Lies are notable for being the first ever Disney remasters to pretty much completely disregard this sentiment and more or less have AI muck everything up about these films. For those unaware, James Cameron actually enlisted Peter Jackson's help in remastering these films using an AI technology that he developed called Park Road Technologies. This technology was designed specifically by Peter Jackson in order to upscale older footage, probably most notably The Beatles Get Back, which was a documentary series that aired on Disney+. While this series was mostly received well by critics at the time, the technology it utilized was definitely criticized. Most notably, a lot of people pointed out that the AI used to upscale the original archival footage of the Beatles used in this documentary actually gave them a really smooth, very fake looking look to them. And the fact that it used so much digital noise reduction actually resulted in a lot of detail missing from the original footage. Despite all this, James Cameron thought it would be a brilliant idea to use this technology in his upcoming remasters of Aliens and True Lies, and oh boy, the results speak for themselves. Now we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger and everybody else in True Lies looking like they should be in a wax museum because the AI can't figure out what skin is at all for some reason. Whenever AI tries to upscale skin from older footage, it always makes it look way too glossy and smooth, like I'm looking at Mr. Clean's forehead or something. And the remasters of True Lies and Aliens have that all over them. True Lies is probably the most blatant example of the AI completely messing up while upscaling this film, giving everything a very uncanny valley look and also removing a lot of detail as well. In this shot here, the AI adds a bunch of pores and creases to Arnold's face for no discernible reason whatsoever, making him look like he's from the Uncanny Valley. And in this shot here,
or that he's some kind of alien.
of course, the AI manages to mess up Arnold's hand. Wow, human hands really seem to be the nemesis of AI forever. This shot here makes Tom Arnold look like he's turning into an amalgamation of Emperor Palpatine and Donald Trump, which no, is not a compliment. Jamie Lee Curtis has been turned into a ghoulish vampire here, with her skin being way too smooth and there being almost no detail whatsoever shown on it. And because of the oversaturation of all the AI and DNR in the 4K transfer of this film, every single action scene looks like it was green screened in, which is honestly kind of a shame because this film is notable for having some great practical effects in it. Every single over-the-top action scene in this film was actually all done practically, but because of how the AI operates here, it looks incredibly phony, which really sucks and underlines the hard work that went into making these scenes. Despite James Cameron advertising the usage of AI during the 4K...
Yeah. You think of like... you think of like, I remember when green screen was becoming, more and more common, and you could always tell, right? You could always tell there was the green screen in there. I mean, I think you still can tell for the most part, even when they're using tons of it. The whole background is green screen. It becomes less, I guess, noticeable when everything is green screened in. But yeah, to completely like make a worse product off of the AI is like, who, I say this all the time, but like, who is looking at this and being like, perfect, right? You could have at least maybe someone gone in and done some editing on it to fix what the AI did, but it's not. They want to use it lazily just to get the product out.
Remaster of this as something that would make the ultimate experience for this film and something that would add a lot to it. If anything, it's just taken away from it. The same exact thing happened when he remastered Aliens with Disney as well. While it's not as bad as the True Lies remaster, the AI still does mess up a lot of stuff here. Much like before, pretty much every close-up shot of a face is way too hyper-saturated and adds too many pores and stress lines to every single face, making everyone look way older than they actually are. Sigourney Weaver looks just about 20 years older in every shot of this film as a result, just because of how much the AI messes up her face. The AI is really bad at reading long distance models as well. In this shot here with Vasquez, it tries to read her face at first as an amorphous blob because it doesn't recognize her face is a face. Then for some reason it adds a mouth to this side of her cheek because it doesn't realize where her mouth is supposed to go. Then it finally does figure out her mouth is supposed to go on the front of her face and adds this weird little blowhole like she's a dolphin on the front of it. Gee, I guess we should start calling her Flipper now, huh, James? And then it ends everything off, giving her mime makeup for no reason whatsoever. Pretty much every face shown at a long distance or with a lot of motion in this movie is automatically morphed for no reason whatsoever by the AI. When there's a lot of commotion in a particular scene, it can't seem to read the face at all as just a face and just wants to do a bunch of other things with it. Even just completely metal structures in this film have been smoothed over entirely by the AI for no discernible reason whatsoever, making them look like XRBZ filters for old games. Come on, James, this technology has been around since 1982. Are you telling me it took you this long to actually come up with something like this? The guys at LucasArts figured out how to do this when porting Monkey Island to Macintosh. And just like before, pretty much every practical effect in this movie looks like CGI or a green screen because of how much the AI is completely overdoing it. Like the alien queen looks like a CGI monster in this version, which should not be the case at all. I think one of the most frustrating things about this is around the time both of these movies were finally released on 4K, while True Lies did get a lot of flack from major news outlets, a lot of major physical media news outlets ended up openly stating they wanted to sidestep any discussions on the AI used during the Aliens transfer, and give it positive reviews simply on the merit of it being a 4K version of Alien, whether it was a good version or not. And this, to me personally, was undoubtedly a huge mistake. When it comes to the usage of AI, especially with how rapidly it's evolving and also how uncomfortably often it's getting used in the entertainment industry, it's very important to actually call it out when it's blatantly doing something wrong, like replacing artists, or in this case, taking away detail from an older version of a movie. Claiming that these are the best ways to watch these movies and also claiming that these versions add in a lot of detail that wasn't there before is basically false advertising. And it's really important to call that out when it happens, especially in regards to AI, but unfortunately, a lot of news outlets didn't do that around this time. And while he was derided a lot for True...
Well, I mean, we've talked about how even all news outlets are pretty much compromised. They don't want to say anything bad about any of these things, whether it's the movie industry, whether it's the gaming industry. It's just it's pervasive in everything.
True lies, James Cameron more or less got away scot-free with his pretty atrocious restoration of Aliens, which is really unfortunate for the industry. He and Disney were not properly called out when this film was remastered at all for the atrocious use of AI, which unfortunately became a further issue as time went on. So after seeing they could use AI on their products and not get called out for it too much, Disney decided to not so covertly look into using AI further in entertainment avenues of theirs. The same year they put out the Aliens and True Lies remasters, they also ended up using AI and other things put on Disney+. Two notable examples of this were the film Prom Pact and also the Marvel TV series Secret Invasion. In the film Prom Pact, right away in the opening scene, you can actually very visibly tell that the extras in the bleachers are all entirely AI generated, or at the very least, the ones shown in this room.
Look at that. Ooh, that guy's face is all messed up. We got this guy over here. Like it's awful.
Here for a split second. Holy crap, they give the Polar Express a run for its money in terms of the uncanny valley. These are so bad looking, what were you thinking, Disney? You could have just put actual extras in here. But of course, this was them trying to steadily test the waters for AI generated people in their films going forward. Why pay wages for extras in films when you can just AI generate them? With this film being a relatively minor release dumped on Disney+, this was a pretty easy way for them to try this without anyone really noticing. However, things got even worse when Secret Invasion was released, because then people actually caught on and Disney got called out. For those unaware, in Secret Invasion, the entirety of the credit sequence is all AI generated. Unlike the situation with Prom Pact, which of course was a movie that barely anyone watched, Secret Invasion caught on enough despite having terrible reviews for people to actually notice that this entire sequence was all AI. And people were really not happy about it whatsoever. In fact, funny enough, both of these instances actually ended up playing into the fact that the writer's strike happened later that year in 2023. 2023 was a pretty bad year in general for Disney, despite it being their 100th anniversary, with a lot of major flops like Indiana Jones The Dial of Destiny, Wish, Haunted Mansion, and The Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is another one. The only movies they actually had this year that could be considered viable successes would be Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and also Elemental. And the writer's strike ultimately made it even worse for Disney, since they had to delay the release dates for a lot of their planned movies. Things like Fantastic Four: The First Steps, Avatar: Fire and Ash, Deadpool and Wolverine, Tron Ares, and Zootopia 2 all got shifted around pretty drastically thanks to the strikes. Man, I really wish the live-action Lilo and Stitch had just been cancelled in the midst of this. Life would be a lot better without that, for sure. But
my kids said that the original was better. So that tells you anything.
Eventually, the studios did strike a deal with the writers, and it seemed like finally the writers' strike was over. It seemed like at long last, confirmation that AI would never infiltrate the Disney studios was finally here. Until just a year later, when Disney decided to put AI slop all over the premiere for Tron Ares.
Our expectations for you were low, but holy
why Disney decided
there's a thing when it comes to, like, once things go corporate, it's no longer about making a good product. It's about making a number go up. And the easiest way to make the number go up is to spend less money on your product. So you end up with cheaper parts, films where you're using AI, Chinese investments in Slop. It's I don't understand. Like I'm all for, I think that, capitalism can definitely be a good thing, but once it becomes like this corporate entity where you have all these giant corporations who are crushing the little man and just trying to make their products cheaper, you get what you get. You get the era that we're in now.
To do this is honestly beyond me. Tron is generally a pretty hard IP to sell to a mainstream audience overall, so putting AI slop and associating with Elon Musk all over the premiere of the film was honestly not a good idea. Also, making Jared Leto the star of your film was never a good idea either. The man has killed Sony's Spider-Man universe and also Tron, so now he's off to kill the Masters of the Universe franchise as well next year. Yippee! This was also just genuinely a baffling decision from Disney themselves, since earlier that year, they had actually scrapped AI usage from the live-action Moana remake and also Tron Ares. Initially, for the live-action Moana remake, which by the way still doesn't need to happen, the movie won't even be 10 years old by the time the remake comes out, they were gonna have an AI deepfake of Dwayne Johnson because clearly that's something everybody wants to see. And funny enough, this idea was actually scrapped not even because of the ethics surrounding AI, but because Disney was worried they couldn't claim ownership over every part of the film if AI generated parts were included in it. Wow, yep, that sounds very Disney for sure. As for Tron Ares, there was initially gonna be a completely AI generated character included in it, but eventually this got scrapped. It's no secret that Tron Ares saw a lot of revision during its scripting and also during its filming, and a lot of scenes actually got cut from the film, so more than likely this is just the cause of that rather than Disney actually caring about AI. Hence why they had no problems at all putting AI slop all over the premiere of this film. And then, just 1 month after Tron Ares initially came out, the big blow came in the form of Bob Iger announcing that Disney was going to be looking into putting AI-generated content on Disney+. This inevitably caused a lot of backlash online, and rightfully so. One of the big voices speaking about this was none other than Dana Terrace, who previously created the Owl House show for Disney Channel and also currently creates the Knights of Guinevere for Glitch Productions, which I've talked about here before on the channel. Dana is honest.
They're trying to push it so hard because if AI works out, right? If it works out for them, it is a cheaper product, right? They don't really care if the product coming out is good, we all know that, but they don't care, to the point that this is like they're pushing something that keeps failing for them just to try and make it work.
One of the most base people currently out there in the animation industry, and pretty boldly spoke against Bob Iger here. She urged people to unsubscribe from Disney Plus and simply pirate her show instead, since obviously Bob Iger and crew should not really be endorsed for putting AI slop on Disney Plus. And then just 1 month later, the official deal came out about Disney and OpenAI, with Disney letting them use 200 of their characters. So that brings us to now, where people are wondering what exactly this deal is going to do for Disney and how exactly this will operate on Disney Plus overall. From what has been shown, obviously there's going to be a limit to just 200 characters that users are supposed to be able to use on Disney Plus and make AI generated videos of. But like I said before, even though OpenAI 100% got the short end of the stick on this deal, I kind of wonder whether Disney is thinking people will actually want to pay for this on Disney Plus in general, or even use this feature.
Yeah, and what's stopping all the other AI companies from scraping this stuff off the internet? Yeah, these guys hold the license. I guess they can go in and try and sue them for it now, but it's all open up now. You can't. I don't even know where they would begin scraping that information, but I'm not a technical guy. Maybe I should get to it with Thrak and see what he says about it. But it just seems like fruitless.
Disney is a company that is notoriously very protective of how their characters are viewed and what they do in various media. Perhaps one of the best examples of this is the animated Mickey Mouse short Runaway Brain. For those unaware as to what Runaway Brain is, this was actually a Mickey Mouse short that was developed in the early 90s when Disney was looking to rejuvenate the character in a new way and bring it to a new audience. They had actually designated a specific team led by Kathleen Gavin, who was just coming off of The Nightmare Before Christmas with doing this exact thing. Tons of different ideas were thrown around, such as a sequel to Fantasia, new attractions for the theme parks, and also ideas for a new Mickey Mouse short. Specifically, they wanted to do something new and extreme and wacky and very 90s with Mickey Mouse. And that eventually led to the release of the animated short Runaway Brain, which was an animated short where Mickey got his brain swapped with a monster and became an almost unrecognizable demonic force. This was a much different and much darker direction for Mickey Mouse than the company had ever taken for the character before. There's an Exorcist reference in this short. There's an Evil Dead reference in this
This sounds so based.
Short. The monster version of Mickey gets horny for Minnie in a bikini. This was completely different from anything else Disney had really done with the character before, and it was a pretty striking difference. But it's because of how different this short portrayed their mascot character that Disney wasn't really sure what to do with this short when it actually came out. It ended up premiering alongside A Kid in King Arthur's Court when it actually came out, which was probably the worst possible movie for it to debut alongside, although thankfully international casual audiences got to see it alongside a Goofy movie and Hunchback, which are much better movies. The short eventually got released on the Walt Disney Treasures collection in the early 2000s, and then after that, it was more or less just buried by Disney themselves since they didn't really like how it portrayed Mickey, who, of course, like I said before, is their mascot. Disney has been very notorious for a long time of being careful how their characters, especially their mascot characters, are portrayed and seen by the public. Runaway Brain did not fit that image that they wanted the general public to see Mickey in, so as a result, they buried it. So it really does make you wonder, how exactly are they going to keep the AI generated tools on Disney Plus from making versions of their characters that they don't think are publicly acceptable? Because keep in mind, supposedly the AI generated videos are going to be owned by Disney once you make them on this platform, and also they're going to be shared around and shown on Disney Plus as well. More than likely, these videos are going to be heavily restricted as to what prompts you can actually input and what you can actually make the characters do. Especially assuming that they are including mascot characters in these 200 characters like Mickey Mouse himself.
I couldn't imagine that they're going to let people make Mickey Mouse porn as much as there might be an audience for that.
This would be something they'd really want to do. But then that really makes you think, why in the world would the audience who actually likes AI generated stuff be interested in any of this? Usually those kinds of people are only interested in AI generated content for allowing them to put harmless cartoon characters in pretty messed up situations, like putting Pikachu in the set of Saving Private Ryan. This is generally the audience that's kind of interested in this stuff and what you can do with different cartoon characters. So why in the world would they want to mess around with something like this on Disney Plus if they can't actually do the stuff they normally want to do? In addition to this, Disney has also unveiled that they seem to want a lot more out of this OpenAI deal than a lot of people initially thought, since just recently they revealed that they're going to be making a ChatGPT clone for their employees called Disney GPT. Wow, absolutely wonderful. Now the Disney employees can use that when raising their kids instead of actually learning how to raise a kid.
They've done it in the military too. They've thrown this Gen AI thing up. I work for I work for the government. Now I'm a plant. I'm a contractor. Nothing freaking crazy. But yeah, I just popped up everywhere. Like, what am I going to use this Gen AI for? How is this helpful in any way to what I'm doing?
And just like the CEO of OpenAI is. And they've also revealed an Iron Man themed AI tool called Jarvis, just like the Jarvis from the Iron Man films and comics. Now, you might be thinking, oh, if Disney is going to be using Jarvis as an AI tool, perhaps Paul Bettany, the voice of Jarvis, can actually sue them for this. And then, hopefully, Disney will actually stop doing AI slop, right? Unfortunately, Disney has also taken measures to prevent against this as well, since they've revealed that none of the AI-generated content they're going to be putting on Disney Plus nor Jarvis will include any of the voices or actual likenesses of any of the actors behind these characters. On the one hand, obviously this is a good thing because this means these actors aren't getting ripped off by having their voices included in AI slop. But on the other hand, it means Disney has taken very careful measures to make sure that none of these actors can actually sue them for having these characters featured in AI videos on Disney Plus. So whether people like it or not, Disney has basically taken every measure possible to make sure these AI videos stay up on Disney Plus. And in addition to this, it's very...
Disney has just over the years just absolutely turned into a slot machine. It's nuts. all the thing, but it goes back on what I was saying earlier. It's not about making a good product. It's about making the number go up, and the more they make the number go up, the more money everyone else has, right? Or the more money their investors get.
Clear, they're also looking at ways to integrate AI into their workflow, like the Jarvis thing I just mentioned here. This is rather concerning that AI is not only being endorsed on Disney Plus and AI-generated videos are being put on there, but it's also being integrated directly into the company's workflow. It's unclear if they're actually implementing this system in order to replace human workers, hopefully not. But even if that's not actually the plan,
They absolutely want to replace human workers. If companies could replace human workers with robots and AI so that they didn't have to pay as much and it was more cost effective, 100% they would do it. We've seen it with, the rise in automated factories and things like that. When it comes to the car industry, pretty much no one human touches the car, but through that process. So yes, they would 100%.
Something that's pretty harmful to the natural creative process. This is something that was just announced today as of me making this video, so I guess we'll just have to see how Disney actually plans on implementing this Jarvis system in the future. But regardless of anything, it's honestly really disappointing to see Disney team up with OpenAI to begin with. Disney has made a lot, and I mean a lot, of pretty bad decisions over the last decade or so. They blatantly messed up the Star Wars sequel trilogy by not having a plan for that trilogy whatsoever. After Avengers Endgame came out, they ended up
Fortnite tried to do the AI Darth Vader, and before the day ended, it was already saying slurs. Yeah, that was hilarious. I was telling my brother-in-law about that, and he's like, oh, we didn't have any problem with it. Me and my son did it. And I was like, well, there's a lot of people that were. There was also a dating AI that people were, it was a learning model, and people were harassing it and and wanting it to do like BDSM stuff and stuff like that, that it in other people's accounts where they were like treating it like their girlfriend, it actually started to like sexually harass them because it thought that was the common thing. It's just going to get worse and worse until this supposed bubble pops, unless some magical thing happens where AI suddenly becomes perfect. But even on that, we're talking about like the energy consumption that's needed. I saw something that said AI was its water usage was more than like the bottling industry and another industry like together. Like the amount of energy and cooling that these things need to keep going, it doesn't seem like we're at that technological level that we can produce the power that we need to even do the dumbass AI we have right now.
Oversaturating the Marvel brand by putting out a bunch of half-baked shows, only a few of which were actually quality. And they've also constantly pressured Pixar to keep putting out sequels to their popular movies instead of creating original director-driven projects, which Pixar was normally known for when they were starting out. But as bad as all of those decisions have been, it is nowhere near as bad as how much they've been endorsing AI in recent memory. This is something that, believe it or not, Walt Disney himself probably would be spinning in his grave over. The reason why Walt Disney was able to create a successful animation and family-branded company is because he understood how to make timeless properties that could appeal to a very wide audience. He wasn't into doing sequels, and he wasn't into doing things that he thought would cheapen the brand and ruin the magic that the Disney company had. And since his death in the 1960s, this is something that every CEO that has run the Disney company after him has failed to realize. They all have done things that have blatantly cheapened the Disney brand at one point or another, and Iger just happens to be the worst offender of this. Buying out things like Star Wars and Marvel instead of making original properties that people will love for many years to come. Forcing Pixar to continue to make sequels.
That would require paying artists and creatives to actually spend the time making something that they're passionate about. And we don't have time for that. We don't have time for the passionate artist. We just need to get the product out
instead of making original director-driven movies like they used to do. And now, the cherry on top, blatantly endorsing generative AI. Michael Eisner was by no means a great CEO either, but even he understood in order to run a company with longevity, you had to make products that actually had longevity to them. There's a quote from him in the book Disney War, which by the way I highly recommend reading if you're interested in seeing how Disney sort of got to this point to begin with, where he says, "We have no obligation to make art, we have no obligation to make history, we have no obligation to make a statement, but to make money. But to make money, it is often important to make history, to make art, or make some significant statement." While Eisner unfortunately missed a lot of the points that Walt understood and definitely cheapened the Disney brand by creating a bunch of direct-to-video sequels and things like that, he still did understand the importance of encouraging great art to be made at the company by actually artistically gifted people so that the company would maintain longevity. Even as bad as Eisner is, I can still give him that point over Bob Iger, who has not understood that aspect whatsoever. Michael Eisner's reign at Disney was also a highlight.
Disney doesn't like taking risks. I mean, no corporation likes taking risks. They want constant, steady growth. So when you get to this these people are in charge. Like he was saying, we want to make money, but you need to make something good. Well, that's not even the statement anymore. It's just, we want to make money. There's got to be like a point where a lot of these companies come crashing down, right? And they'll go to the government for money because it'll crash the stock market or something like that.
Highlighted by the Disney Renaissance in the 1990s, which produced some of their greatest films of all time. And many of the films from that era are still loved by audiences all around the world because the artists who created them were actually encouraged to create truly timeless pieces of art. This is a sentiment that Iger directly goes against when endorsing AI. To cap things off here, I want to share a clip from the Pixar Story, which was a documentary from 2007 about the founding of Pixar. It's a pretty good, albeit a bit outdated now, documentary that covers pretty much the entire history of the company all the way up to the release of Ratatouille. I was recently rewatching this documentary since it's included on my Criterion edition of WALL-E, and one particular clip here stuck out to me.
Early days, artists were frightened of the computer because they were under the impression that somehow it's going to take their jobs away. And we spent a lot of time telling people, no, it's just a tool. It doesn't do the creativity. That's a misconception, but there was this fear.
I think that is so interesting to look back on now, after seeing how Pixar eventually was able to show people that art could still be created with the computer using it as a tool. Yeah. But now we've almost gone completely in the other direction, and now computers are just doing the art entirely for people. Things like this eliminate
I've heard people talk about it's the same thing as like some other progressive things, like I think Edgar Egads even mentioned that, a lot of technology coming out starts out hated. And, the computer industry, when all that was coming up, no one really saw a purpose for it. With, artists wanting to use the computer, they thought it was taking their jobs away, but it wasn't going for the creative aspect of it, like they just said. Now we have something that is literally trying to take the jobs away and the creative aspect by pretending to be creative.
The creative process entirely, and really go against companies like Pixar's entire mantra. And they also go against what used to be Disney's entire mantra as well. It is incredibly disappointing to see them teaming up with OpenAI, and I can only hope that eventually, since Bob Iger is supposedly leaving the company pretty soon, that this will be taken care of after that. I guess we'll ultimately just have to see how Disney ends up integrating AI as time goes on, since this is still pretty early on in their deal with OpenAI. But one thing's for certain, if they were already given a bad look for a lot of things before, this just gave them an even worse look by a lot of people. For now, the best thing you can do is just have your voice heard. If you have a Disney Plus subscription and you don't want to see AI slop on it, let Disney know and cancel that subscription. It really comes down to the users giving the mouse the money to let them know that they don't want to see AI slop on their streaming platform. Now, I'm not going to necessarily advocate for boycotting Disney movies, obviously, because I think that's always kind of a double-edged sword. There absolutely are a lot of great creative people that still work at Disney, and they do work on a lot of these movies, and that's how they get paid usually. So that's why I never really advocate for boycotting specific Disney products, especially if it's something you really like and want to see succeed, especially if it's animated. Lord knows the animation industry needs it as much as they can get these days. But regardless of anything and what you decide to do with your money, I guess
and just like we're seeing in the gaming industry, where you have companies like Larian, and now Owlcat has come out and admitted that they use AI and concept art and things like that, but it doesn't make it to the games. There is a proper way you can use the Gen AI to enhance the artist. But this isn't it, Disney. If anything, this is probably going to make it a lot worse.
We'll just see for now what Disney actually decides to do with AI, and hopefully it'll end eventually. But what do you think? Am I wrong? Am I a gay furry? And what are your thoughts on Disney teaming?
You're probably a gay furry, I would guess. You're not here to defend yourself this time, but I would bet you're a gay furry.
Up with OpenAI? Let me know in the comments below. Regardless, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it or learned something new from it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, and also consider subscribing as well. I do a lot of videos like this overall, often talking about film and animation, so if you like this video, you'll probably like the other videos I have planned as well. If you'd like to keep up with what I do outside of YouTube, you can check out all my socials down down below. And if you want to check out all my written film reviews, you can check out my letterbox linked in the description. If you'd like to hang out with a bunch of like-minded film and animation fans as well, you can consider joining my Discord, which is also linked down below. Special thanks to all my patrons and YouTube members who...
Awesome. Again, that's Otterly Noah. We like Otterly Noah here. He's a pretty good guy and makes some good points. I'll drop this video in the chat. Go watch it. Go give it a like. Go help the Noah out. The other videos that I've watched are down in the description below. With that though, I think we're gonna call it a night here. So thank you all for coming. If you haven't liked it, like the stream on the way out. I will be back on Monday with something else. If you have something you want me to watch, down below is my Discord. You can go into the Discord, and Feed the Pig is the chat where you can leave me something you want me to watch, whether it's a tweet or it's a video or an article or something like that. Drop it in there, and maybe I'll talk about it on stream. But thank you, everybody, for coming by. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.